up, everybody? John Maddox here, coming at you with another late night logical, plausible, probable. We're gonna be having an open mic discussion. You never know where we might end up, but I will tell you this: before we're done, we will have put some Evos in their place, because when I'm finished, you done. What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing? Decided to do another late night impromptu stream because, oh man, today was a rather unfortunate turn of events for me. For the first time in like well over a decade, I rolled my ankle, and I have now given myself a rather bad ankle sprain. So I am laid up in bed, endorsing some rice. Got the rest, ice, compression, elevation going on, and decided, well, since I can't really be doing much, I might as well have a stream, get some people in. Hopefully we'll have a good dumpster fire, and can have some good conversation, get things going. Who knows when? I guess I won't be doing much tomorrow in terms of leaving my domicile, so, might be able to stay up late and have some good times. For everybody who wants to get some merch, about to post a link. Would head on over there. Use code LPP30 for 30% off. Anything you like over there. So chat link for that is in the chat. I've also, I think I pinned. Did I pin the chat to join the stream? No, I did not. Okay, let me do that again real quick, folks. We'll get the link is chat right now. Join the stream. There you go. And I will pin that up at the top. But something I wanted to talk about real quick was a very interesting quote from Machiavelli's The Prince that I came across recently. And I thought it was very apropos on a variety of fronts, whether it be the atheist conversations, the Evo atheism discussions, whether it be a lot of things in politics or just, general view of the world and such. But it was a great quote. So it must be considered that there is nothing more difficult to carry out, nor more doubtful of success, nor more dangerous to handle than to initiate a new order of things. For the reformer has enemies in all those who profit by the old order, and only lukewarm defenders in all those who would profit by the new order. This lukewarmness arising partly for fear of their adversaries, who have the laws in their favor, and partly from the incredulity of men who do not truly believe in anything new until they have had actual experience of it. That's from Machiavelli's The Prince, Chapter 6. And that was a very, very apropos concept there. And it just fits so many different facets. Like, what's one of the standard atheist talking points that we get? Oh, have you not heard about the Dover trial? And intelligent design was ruled not to be science, and evolution has been ruled to be science and to be taught, and all these different things. And you can't even propose alternative ideas because you're just against science. Or in any of the conversations of the things that are happening across the globe right now on different totalitarian moves that are being made by governments across the globe. And if anybody wants to question them, then you just you're out there. You're a dangerous individual. Like you're not willing to step out, and or people aren't willing to step out and challenge the status quo. And the same thing with being the vilification that's happening with entrepreneurship this past decade, really, but really this past couple of years of just straight up, oh, if you want to run a business, you want to do things, and you're just an evil person who wants to take advantage of, the working man and not actually give anybody an opportunity to, make it in this world. You're just trying to keep everybody down and all these kind of things. And people just really don't want to look at the macro view of things that are going on across our planet, in our societies, whether on the micro or the microcosm. And just, it's very disturbing to me, but it also lends significant amounts of credence to the outliers who, in their books, in their speeches, in their papers and articles over the millennia, have outlined what is the human condition, what is the standard human nature, and what are the things that, regardless of your time, regardless of your wealth, your influence, all of those things that come into play, what are the standard moves made by humans? And it's very fascinating to me that when you read things like the Federalist Papers, for example, or the Prince or other things, these authors understood the human psyche, and very often they could almost be construed as time traveling, forward thinking prophets who were able to predict, with, in very many cases, extreme precision and certainty, what will be the outcome if different things are put forth. And I think, in the context of atheism, evolution, Darwinism, all the different things that become the conventional paradigm of modern society, when we look at what is happening and how people are being deemed to be expendable, and somehow that we should not be doing everything in our power to find unity, to find ways to help each other, and to ultimately solve the problems in a conjoined effort. No, we must be told what to do. We must be told what to think, and not to risk challenging the standard conventions. And again, we see it everywhere. People are afraid to not only challenge the status quo, but even after it has been challenged, as Machiavelli said, until someone has actually experienced the answer for themselves, they will refuse to accept it. And what, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the most standard Evo atheist YouTube anti-theist talking points? If God exists, I would have experienced him. If God truly exists, he would show himself to me in real time. Otherwise, there is no way I could possibly come to any conclusion or any kind of acceptance that the evidence is in favor of the existence of a divine creator. No, ladies and gentlemen. No, the more rational conclusion is to ignore all this evidence until God stands before you and grants all of your wishes true. And for something like Randolph Richardson, unless God grants you a few of his powers for a couple weeks, then there is no way you will ever believe that a God could possibly exist. But enough of my rant there. Hurricane Lang, what's going on? How are you? Welcome to the stream. Appreciate you coming in to join hopefully what will turn into a dumpster fire at some point.
Yeah, within a couple hours, I'm sure that it'll get lit up. I was wondering, I think it would be a good idea if you read some concession emails from, Godless Engineer, Jeffrey, and T-Jump. I'm sure they sent you some emails about conceding that DNA is indeed a code after Dawkins admitted to it. So why don't you just read those off for everybody?
Well, I can tell you with extreme certainty that those concessions have not been made. Nor, in fact, Williams is, I don't know if you ever goof around on Twitter, but Williams has doubled and tripled and quadrupled down on it not being code. It's rather entertaining, to be honest.
Did he make any more videos in response to you?
To my knowledge, no.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty embarrassing. I always kind of wonder how long after they doubled down, quadrupled down, and eventually I think more Evos are going to come to the realization that they can't hide it anymore and just say, okay, yeah, we're going to have to concede now. And it's just going to look really, really bad for them after they held their position for so long.
Well, I'll say this. I actually have begun work on a book specifically on this topic. And part of my thought process on this is, if anybody who's read the papers, or there's plethora of books that, there's different, multiple chapters on this topic, right? But the problem is the vast majority of those books are written from the perspective that it's an accepted premise, right? So they're usually extrapolating out the ontological ramification and ontological and teleological ramifications of it being code, right? Or that if from the atheist perspective, the researcher perspective, oh, okay, well, this is something we must account for through the conventional paradigm, right? And I think this leads a lot of the desperate atheists on YouTube and Twitter to argue, well, they didn't explain what code is, or or they don't know what code is, therefore the premise of it, being accepted is not really code in the context that we're arguing, right? And one of the things that has led me, like I said, to start writing a book is I'm actually going to focus on, or we're not focused, but one of the things I'm focusing on is basically outlining and explaining the fundamental basics of what code is from a communication and information theory perspective.
Okay.
And basically the underlying fundamentals of it. What are all the things that are necessary for something to be considered a code per the standard communication definitions, principles, etc., because they're all quantifiable, right? And then from there progress into why the genetic code qualifies as such, or the different elements that fulfill these different, underlying facets that are necessary, and then go into the we're not even really get into the implications, but I'm gonna keep it relatively short and kind of just be like let's dumb this thing down for well, not dumb it down. I mean, dumb it down from the a basic explanation of these concepts, and then their application, and then kind of leave it at that initially, and then let other people's work kind of extrapolate and take it from there, rather than reinvent the wheel. Be like, hey, go read these books on the philosophical and the scientific ramifications, right? Here's just the principles and why they apply. So for the love of all those good and holy, can we please stop denying this and having to sit here and waste stupid amounts of time on whether or not it's freaking metaphor or not,
Is there always going to be that because it's organic, it can't be considered a code?
Well, they continue. The people that perpetuate that are the same ones who argue that, well, twofold. Number one, they don't understand what code is, so they don't actually know what they're arguing. And then secondarily, given the fact that we are currently, this goes to like the common, it's just chemicals, therefore it can't be code. It's like, well, that's been completely annihilated by the fact that we're storing data digitally in DNA.
Right.
So if that wasn't going on, okay, maybe. But since that is happening, like,
nowhere to run.
You can't argue that it's just chemicals. It can't store anything. It's like, well, dude, everything at some level is a molecule. Right. So unless you're going to argue that the variety of mediums that we've used to store digital data are not also made out of molecules, then, which you can't. I mean, you can't make that argument and not be a moron. Like there's just no way around it, right? Like, oh, are you saying that your hard drive is not made out of molecules?
So, I mean, it's really no different than just banging two rocks together, is what a wise man told me once.
Well, you do need to accept T-Jump's word. Sure.
I do. I actually rewatched that one a few days ago at work, and I'm just baffled by that guy. He just wants to sit there and just deny over and over again. But the thing I did want to ask you about was, if you can explain to me again, when you guys were talking about information theory and storing it, what is the difference between the information and the medium? Like if I shout something in the excuse me, if I shout something like, T-Jump's a moron, the information, right, is material at some level because it's in the air, it's sound waves. And I think the medium is your ears and your ability to process it. But what's the difference between the two, if any? You're on mute, Maddox.
Okay, so yeah, you're correct and incorrect. Okay, so there's the physical medium, right? So in like the OSI 7 layers of data, right? Which anybody who's ever read anything about communication theory, telecommunication, computers, things like that would know about this, right? And one of the layers is the physical layer, right? So for example, your CD, right, that's the physical medium, right? But the data that's on there, the information could be ripped off of that CD and like stored on your hard drive, right? Or
Yes.
saved, turned into an MP3 and emailed, or put on a thumb drive, all that kind of stuff, right? So the medium which contains houses the physical medium which houses the information is not the same necessarily as the information itself, right?
Okay.
So now, in the context of when you say T jump is a moron and it's going across the sound wave, like it's sound, right, in wave form.
Yeah.
That is now the channel, which is transmitting the information, right? So it was first encoded into those sound waves by your larynx, right? And that's a result of the signals that were sent from your brain, which is actually the original source of the encoding, right? Then it's sent to the transmitter, which is your larynx, and then it goes out through the channel, which is the sound waves, right? Then it hits your ear, which is the decoder, right? Which is then sending it in electrical signals into your brain, which is then reconstructing the information based on a decode table, which is the English language, right, in this context, and your knowledge, pre-existing knowledge of what those sounds are equal to. What are the values that are assigned to it, right? Now, the information is different than the meaning, right? So Shannon clearly delineated this in his 1948 paper and then further on with the Shannon Weaver model and a variety of other things, right? But hey, Hurricane, we're getting a weird little like crinkle noise or something in the background.
Sorry. I should probably just explain this and just let somebody else come in. I'm on a fishing trip with my kid right now in South Dakota.
Oh, no, you're good.
Only 4. He's in the background playing Combat Tribes.
Okay. No, you're good. You're good, man. You're good. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
It's not super bad. I thought maybe you had some crinkling or something you weren't aware of it. No worries. Okay. So what was I saying? Okay. So you have the Shannon information, and you're looking at the reduced uncertainty, but you're not necessarily accounting for this is what like the capacity of the channel and the volume that's being sent, right? But you don't necessarily know what the medium, or sorry, you don't necessarily what the meaning of the information is, right? So it's being transferred because all you're looking at right now is the measurement of it, but you don't actually know what it means unless you have the decode table. And you must initially have both sides of the equation, both the sender and the receiver must know the decode tables, because there's like an encode table when you're sending it, and then there's a decode table on the other side. This is like a fundamental principle of all communication, and you must know both sides of the equation. So for example, if you don't speak Spanish, but you're talking to somebody who does, they're using the same medium, in this context, sound, right, to send information that's being encoded. And they might actually, or not actually, they are speaking something and they're using a code table for something that you probably know what it is. You just don't know what the word and the sounds that are associated with that word, which are associated with that item, mean, because you don't know what Spanish is, right? Or you might know a few of the words, but you don't know all, right? So, what's no hablo español, right? I don't speak Spanish, right? If you don't know what that means, then they could say it all day long. It's coming into your ears. Your brain is trying to decode it, but you have no idea what the meaning is. And this is where the decode table becomes so important. And when you put this in context of like biology, you have a decode table that has to be pre-known by the ribosome, for example, to be able to interpret what codon equals which amino acid. And if it doesn't have the prior knowledge and this information and the ability to decode, then you won't be able to we won't know, quote unquote, which amino acid is correct based on the codon that's now coming in with the tRNA, right?
Okay.
And one of the major things that the Evo atheists try to spin is the word knowledge or know, right? They think about it from the conscious perspective, when that principle is not limited to, there's like our version of quote unquote knowledge, right? Versus what is done in computers and technology and everything else, right? We can assign the values and then assign the decode tables from a mechanistic perspective, right? We do this all the time. And it's the same thing with like all of our computers do this, right? It's reading different voltages, right? And then making actions based on predetermined command line functions that have been pre-programmed into the hardware to be able to know what the end outcome is going to be, right? But if you don't have that pre-existing knowledge, it's not pre-programmed, then there's no way an inanimate object is going to be able to quote unquote know what the command is. Like, why in the hell would molecules know what enter means?
They wouldn't.
They wouldn't, right? But if you programmed all that in, then obviously it does know what it does, because we enter all the time without even thinking about it, and presto, it's, we're on to the next line of our email or whatever we're typing, right? And the last little long-winded diatribe on this is like, one of the things people don't think about is the fact that, sending an email, for example, right? Actually, let's do an attachment. So you got a Word doc and you've typed up a paper or a report or something to your boss, right? You have now saved it as a doc file. You have then created an email. You've attached the Word document, and you've sent the email, right? You have so many different layers of, I'd say at a minimum, probably 12 different layers of like different languages that are being encrypted and decrypted when you send that email. Each one is being like housed inside of the other one, right? And you have to have all of the folds of the data done correctly without corruption, or you have a cascade failure of all the information being sent, right? And we have so many error correction mechanisms, all these different error correction codes that are going on in the background to make sure we have everything encrypted correctly before it's sent, right? And we also have different codes to account for noise in the channel that may have accounted for loss of data. And then we've got protocols to account for on the other end during the reconstruction after the decoding of the information that's been sent. If we have lost a little bit of data, we have logic codes that are built in to reconstruct the pieces that might have been lost, because you can never eliminate noise completely. And the irony is, in the context of the discussion we're talking about right now, is we know beyond doubt that in biological systems, we have all the exact same types of protocols. Error correction codes, multiple layers, layer upon layer. I mean, it's like all these different things that are being encrypted and decrypted in the expression of gene sequences and regulatory functions, all this kind of stuff. But then we still have people on YouTube running around claiming that none of it exists, when we're now realizing that the way that it's done in DNA is more efficient than what we're doing in our best systems, which is why we're trying to copy it. And
I got to say, John, that was a pretty good analogy for epigenetics, for error correction within telomerase. I mean, that was pretty decent.
Well, I appreciate that. How you doing, Richard? Good to see you, man.
Oh, better than I deserve, man.
What's going on with you? I apologize, everybody. I've been going on a long-winded diatribe there for a minute, so I will shut up. Richard, what brings you to the stream? How's everything going? Give us a few things you want to talk about. Hurricane, come back. And then after you get done,
William Crane's lag
can talk to you. So go ahead, Richard.
I kind of wanted him to go with William's Crane leg, but it didn't happen. I just had a terrible conversation, which was with two atheists who pretty much did to me like the opposite of the atheist experience, where Christians come on there with horrible arguments and just like kept straw manning me and asking me to defend things I never said. What kind of fallacy is that? I don't even know. And poisoning the well. And I mean, one thing right after the other, even appealed to me having a short-term brain dysfunction to explain a personal revelation. I'm like, come on, man. That's really reaching out there. But anyway, I'm here because I love you guys and I want to support your show. and I think that you've aptly named yourself.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. And okay, so I'm very curious about what you were just talking about there. Okay, so you were explaining a personal experience, and they said that basically you had brain problems because of your personal experience.
Didn't say that was the necessary answer, but suggested that in a 53-year life, there was a 3.5 minute span where some kind of brain dysfunction manifest. I mean, this is just insanity. Where some kind of brain dysfunction manifests temporarily, never having any sign before it or after, and it's been 10 years since the event.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so basically the standard atheist dodge of anything that could potentially be construed as insight, experiential evidence in favor of something beyond the purely material. Is that kind of? And
what it's really kind of profound to me that you're talking about information theory, and I have a semi favorite, not willing to plant my flag and die on the hill, but Werner Gett is, I think, maybe one of the premiers in information theory. If you want good, solid information theory and you don't want to do a whole lot of reading, he did some videos and is a theist for exactly the reason of information theory. Not because but he's a college professor in Germany. He's actually renowned in like their major university that represents the state of Germany.
Is that he wrote the book? Is he the same guy that wrote the In the Beginning Was Information?
Believe so, yeah. Werner, in English you'd say Werner Gitt, Gitt, but it's actually he pronounced Werner, but because he's German and all that,
right?
So yeah, in information theory, and there's people a lot smarter than me, and you're probably one of them, that have said really intelligent things like information is habitually associated to conscious mind. And once you think about, and the example that you gave was actually pretty good, I think, that the source of the information and the receiver of the information is unanimously, without exception, absolutely 100% of the time, I don't know how to overemphasize that, it is a conscious mind. It always is. And I dare anyone to give me an example of something otherwise.
Okay, clarify that one more point. You were saying sorry, I looked at the chat for a second. Were you saying that the receiver is always a conscious mind, or the originator is a conscious mind?
The decoder and coder are always conscious mind.
See, I would disagree that the decoder has to be a conscious mind.
Okay,
I would argue that the source coder must be.
Okay, why does the decoder not need be?
Well, a robot that we program.
Who programmed?
That an intelligent agent programmed.
And a conscious mind programmed the thing to do the thing. Right.
That's what I was saying. That's the point I was making. The source coder must be a conscious agent. I agree with you completely. The decoder is not necessarily. So here's case in point. So we'll use let's use a robot. Let's use a drone, for example, right? If a drone is programmed with input sensors and all that kind of stuff, right? It can translate information, right? And make modifications to it and decode things in real time. And make modifications in real time. But nobody would argue that the drone is a conscious agent, right? But it's being able to decode information. Or you can every time you send a command from whether your phone or from your controller, right? You're sending digital information to that drone, which is being decoded on the fly, right? So, but the drone is not conscious. However,
the drone is not conscious.
However, what does it have? It has a decoder that was programmed by a conscious agent.
Yes.
It understands this. What I was talking about earlier with Hurricane. It has the decode table that is being able to account for the digital signals that are being sent by the human, right? The conscious agent.
Roger that.
To it and how to be decoded, right? And this is where one of my big problems with the signal theory that we hear about all the time from the Evos. oh, signal theory explains the code and everything else. It's like, no, you have, I'm talking about origination or the expansion of communication protocols, right?
Yeah.
I don't discount that XYZ dance move that a freaking peacock developed necessarily had to have been pre-programmed, right? Every single one of them, right? They could have, new things could have developed over time. However, new signals to the females and all that kind of stuff, right? However, both the interpreter and the sender and the receiver in those contexts were intelligent agents.
Yes.
Right? Now, we can argue about consciousness, different story, right?
Well, awareness. We could argue awareness.
Yeah, we are awareness and whether it's conscious on the same level as us, but nobody would argue
Right.
that even though it's reduced compared to us, they're still intelligent agents. Right?
Sure.
However, they're not the ones that are developing the source code,
No.
which is necessary for the decoders, i.e., their brains, that are now being able to accept new signals and to apply new values to arbitrary values to those signals that are being sent, right?
I think I know what happened. I only implied and never explicitly said that what I was indicating. I never specifically said it. What I mean is it necessitates an originator of a conscious mind. I did leave that word out. I apologize. But we're saying the same thing, you know.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree with you 100% that the original source, it requires an intelligent agent. It's the same thing. I've had arguments with like computer scientists and stuff on this exact topic when it comes to like artificial intelligence. I'm like, guys, the AI systems that you're creating have required
AI.
your brains to exist. Like, you had to write the program. And if you're using other systems that are compiling all this kind of stuff, your code, or you're using just-in-time compilers, if you're using interpreted language, all that kind of stuff, like those things had to have an intelligent agent that preceded them. Like,
yeah, when they make one that's not hooked to the internet and is completely self-contained and is programmed to act a certain way by a certain stimulus, and then it defeats that programming and does otherwise, you've created intelligence. Until then, you have not.
That's an interesting way to put a test on it. I mean, you need a conscious mind. Hey, what's up?
Hey, yeah, I gotta figure out what the heck I just smashed my ankle. I don't know if you heard that, Jamie. I twisted my ankle. I've got to figure out a way to reach my power cord. So you guys talk for a minute while I attempt to hobble and get my power cord.
How you doing, Brother Jamie?
Hey, what's up? I feel like I just
see you on shows and stuff all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying it. How your beard was absurdly glorious in that last stream.
Thank you so much. I blame it on the Moorish invasion of southern Italy.
How do you get from there to here?
Well, the Moors were a dark-skinned, hardy people that were very hairy, and Italians are actually blonde-haired, blue-eyed, tall, thin. But the southern Italy was invaded by the Moors, which is why they're called Black Italians, because they're half black, half Italian. And I am half Southern Italian, and the rest of me is Irish, Scottish, and English. So the beard is totally Moorish, just colored Irish.
Ah, well, good enough for me.
You should see my brothers. They're just as glorious.
Nice. How many of them are there? Plenty?
I have a total of 6 living siblings. I'm sorry, 5 living siblings, and 3 of them are male.
Ah, okay. Nice.
What's funny, it's hard to break habits of saying 6 when it's not anymore.
Yeah.
So do you have any twist on information theory that you think would be applicable and interesting to the conversation, or something you think that I or maybe John said wrong or poorly?
No, I think well, what you were saying and he was pushing back on a little bit. I might have missed part of it, but I'm on my phone on the road here, but I stopped at a rest stop. But it seems like you do need a conscious mind on both ends. Obviously, to originate it would seem. John's been arguing that for a long time. And
he was right, though. I did forget to say originate. I did forget to say that.
Oh, okay. I missed that.
That was the only impasse, actually. The rest of it was just fine.
Hey everybody,
Yeah, it
it's
seems like
hey, real quick, it's Mary Titus's birthday, so happy birthday
Happy
to you, Mary.
birthday, Mary Titus.
happy
And I
birthday,
think
Mary.
we're all feeling old. Listen, Mary, I'm physically hobbled right now, so I'm feeling old as well.
Wait a minute. Hobbled is an actual term where slaves had their ankles broken on purpose by putting a stiff object between the two ankles and hitting the outside of each one of the feet. So I don't know if you're hobbled.
Listen, Richard, I'm using a modern iteration of the
Yes,
word. Okay?
languages evolve.
But you got to appreciate that
Listen,
definition.
Richard, are you like channeling some atheists in you?
I think I might be autistic. No, I just love little details like that.
Oh no, I do too. It's same thing with like in my debate with Godless Engineer. He wanted to argue over my use of the word decimation, and we like pulled it up, and I'm like, well, I'm going, yeah, the original one.
It means 1/10 was destroyed, right?
I'm like, yeah, because deci means 10. Like I understand that, but there's also the modern interpretation, which is like a reduction, or it's like, come on, man, we're gonna go hyper literal here. I wonder where I came up with the atheist hyper literalist disorder.
Yeah.
I wonder what might have inspired that little joke.
Pretty good. Would you happen to know the word? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
John or Jamie, would you happen to know, speaking of presentism fallacies, would you happen to know the word curse from the text?
From the Bible?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I have my suspicions about. I haven't studied it, but I used to tell people. Well, since God forbids magic, and I don't think we want to go there, I think, which is just false, I would say. It kind of ties in with miracles and supernatural as opposed to natural. I don't like those, the implications that a lot of people seem to lay onto those words or those ideas, because the Bible doesn't seem to know anything about that distinction. But as far as a curse goes, I just out of my own ideas or whatever, which is probably a bad way to operate, but I'll tell somebody to remember that time you saw your mom naked on accident, and I tell them to think about that moment. I know it's hard. Now, anytime I tell you from here in the future, remember that when you hear me say that, you will recall that horrible scenario, and then on the next time I see the person, I say, hey, remember that. And I say, see, curses do exist.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we know what just happened. That was actually a recollection of Jamie from his childhood. Somebody did that to him, and he's still trying to deal with it. And
passing it on.
He's just trying to.
I did it to my friend. I just came to me one day out of the blue, and he had a particularly painful. I forget how it had come up in the first place. Then I go, hey, you know what? Whenever I say, remember that, you're going to remember that. And he was distraught. And then when we're sitting in class, during a high school lecture or whatever, everybody was just sitting there. I was sitting behind him, and it just came to me, and I was like, hey, remember. And he just like cringed. It was funny. But anyways, I think that's the sort of thing a curse might be. I don't know. Or one of many things. Maybe that's retarded. Probably is. But
I think the power of suggestion between us humans, in common trust and social structures is evident. Is it a curse? Well, you're using the power of suggestion. You have to be there to actively remind him, and then he has the memory. So I don't know if it's a curse.
Yeah, that may be a very limited application, but I don't think it's. In other words, it's kind of like putting I don't know. What do you think, John? What do you think a curse is in the Bible when it says, because it seems to be something that you're not supposed to do, but we don't believe in magic, right? So.
Well, I think in the Bible, it was like wishing ill fortune or like bad things to happen, and I think that's what the main meaning was. Yeah. But I would. So
is it more like forbidden for our sake? Is it forbidden for the sake of the person doing it, or is there more suggested there that's bad about it? I think what you just said is probably true, but that would have more to do with the problem that that way of thinking would have for the person doing the cursing. Or you could, I guess it could suggest, putting ill will on another group in the minds of others too, I suppose.
Well, of course, you guys have to know that unless I'm an idiot, I well researched the topic that I brought up, because I don't want to look like a fool for my own question, right? So who wants that?
Hang on, Richard, are you suggesting that it is more intelligent to be able to back up your BS than to, I mean, really? You operate from that perspective?
Just maybe we shouldn't slit people's wrists and throats at a barber shop and allow the blood to come out. But maybe what's really going on there is really, really tiny animals are attacking their body and they're just too small for us to see. Maybe, nah. Anyway.
Well, no. Actually, they're very tiny microorganisms you're not able to see that have very sharp edges and they bind. They like to hang out on the edge of the piece of metal that we call a razor, and they're the ones that actually do it. And then sometimes they get a little bit overexcited and they actually cut too deeply. It's not really the blade nor the force being used by the person holding it. It is the actions of these little micro agents. That's what actually.
Yes, Jamie, it's your turn to come up with something absolutely fallacious and ridiculous.
I don't believe in germ theory. Actually, I think it's it's more of the what do they call it? What is it called? It's called.
That was going too far, man.
The thing with the air. It's the air miasma.
Oh yeah, that's it.
It's true, and it's probably true enough, but it wasn't
sure if you live in like Los Angeles or maybe New York City, you might have some of that.
All right, real quick before we get back on to curse, we got a new person joining the stream. So what's up, Sheep? How are you doing? Welcome to the late night, whatever this will turn into. Who are you? What brings you to the stream, and what are things you'd like to talk about?
I just I'm living in Japan, and I do Christian apologetics here. And I was just looking at some of the hashtag atheism. You guys were one that came up, and decided to come in and just to listen a little bit.
Oh, awesome! So you're doing apologetics in Japan?
Yes, sir.
Interesting. So okay, I'm intrigued now. So, what are the types of things that you come up against there? Are you running into like atheism? Is it more like just people aren't interested at all, or is it more the Eastern religions? What do you run into most?
Yeah, mostly like if you look at Buddhism or any sort of other sorts of religions that are in Japan. Most of them actually have an atheistic foundation. So, for example, in Buddhism, they don't necessarily believe in an all-creator God, but maybe like a deity. So Shakyamuni Buddha would say that actually thinking about those sort of things or trying to postulate any of those sort of ideas are not necessary or they're not important for your life on this earth. And then also they have the ideas and concepts of reincarnation. So a lot of times people just don't care whether or not there is a God. And so then I have to tell them, or what I do is I try to logically explain to them why it's a necessity that God is here and God is living and God is substantiating and has instantiated and substantiated all things that are possible and impossible.
Well, that's good. I think to be honest, I find it interesting how many people, especially in Western societies, want to just jump to, like, they don't want to build the foundation for the arguments for a specific God. And a lot of the atheists, at least the ones I interact with, want to jump immediately. Oh, well, you don't want to defend the Christian God. And it's like, well, if you won't even concede that a God could exist, why is it not a waste of my time to try and convince you of a specific one when you won't even concede that one could possibly exist? And
well, I don't think that that's the main problem with atheists. It's more of a childish problem, really. It's because God merely doesn't exist or God isn't perceivable, and that's their reasoning why. But what's interesting is that they also have a paradox, what is it called? A paradox, because at the same time, while believing in an impersonal ultimate reality that isn't perceivable either, the atheist holds to the same sort of presupposition. However, we have a lot more evidence for our claim than they have for their claim. So typically speaking, if atheism that they'll say is just a question to, or it's answering a question for one specific claim, which is whether a God exists or does not exist. But however, that's not saying that they don't have a worldview of any sort. And so if you ask them what their worldview is, they will tell you most likely that is in materialism or naturalism. So the naturalism will assert that we live in a godless and random universe without any rhyme or reason. And they will peddle the non-empirical. They will peddling a non-empirical philosophical belief, and non-empirical beliefs are outside scientific parameters and methodology. So their metaphysical assumptions of materialism are a breach of empirical observation. So their entire ontological grounding is completely destroyed. That's why they try to do it. They actually are more dogmatically faithful than I am, and that's coming from a very hardcore Christian. Anyways, I have to go now, but I will be sure to subscribe and listen to you guys in the future.
You have to go?
Yes, the wife says go, I have to go.
Oh, no, don't go. Go.
Yeah, all right.
Hey, you're great talking with you, man. Appreciate you joining us, and hope to talk to you again soon.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, I know one thing for that dude's English is a lot better than my Japanese.
Yeah, he was very good English. And yeah, his
was textbook.
That sounded like okay, because I heard kids in the background too. That sounded to me, even though it was in Japan, I'm assuming Japanese, that sounded like the mom giving the dad your kid is out of control and he's not listening to me. I need you to play the father role now. So in the context of our earlier conversation about like encoding, decoding, interpretation of stuff, even though I don't understand Japanese, from a tone perspective, that was my interpretation of it.
I don't know. Their tonalities are very, very different. From what I understand, in some language in Asia, the way it goes is the higher pitch is not emphasis. It's a completely different word.
Oh, interesting.
So it might sound excited or even insistent, and it's just word variations. And that's not how they're necessarily expressing it. But that's just something I heard. I'm not an expert or anything like that. It's not my field of study, as Dr. Josh says. No, the idea that there's a presentism fallacy in the opening of the question of the word curse should have given away some hint to it. That in our common in our this modern world, we think of the word curse as having negative connotation, but in fact, there's a story within the Bible which includes two people who were warring over an adjoining property line, and one goes to curse the other in the name of God and uses the name of God, and then the other one goes, "Wait a minute, you worship that God? I do too." So they build an altar on the property line and curse each other to praise God together at the altar once per year.
So you're saying that it could potentially have some kind of a like contractual premise, right? To it.
So yes, some kind of contractual agreement made between two or more, essentially a promise.
Well, I could potentially see that as a subset definition, perhaps.
Like a covenant thing or something.
Sure.
You may lose me.
The story uses the word curse both ways, is why I bring up that particular story.
Well, it's interesting. And I think something that often gets forgotten in a lot of the debates, arguments, et cetera, is just like in presentism, right? We have all sorts of words that mean multiple things. And if you don't know the specific context, or you don't take into account the specific context, you might come up with the wrong interpretation. I mean, we do that all the time and all sorts of stuff, right? If you didn't know what the context of, insert whatever, think off the top of my head, but like it could mean something very, very different depending on the usage, and
Really?
from a pragmatic perspective. And then, as we know, the Hebrew was a dramatically smaller language, right? In terms of sheer volume. And I would argue that because of that, context is probably even more relevant than it would be for us. What would you guys think about that?
Jamie, if you wanted to, because I'm just mouthy tonight. I'm excited. I think it's obvious the reason the translation comes out so repetitive is because you needed that amount of variations of restatement to make clear their point in that language.
Yeah, the root letters have meanings that have multiple meanings. So the same root letters in the Hebrew can mean different words because they didn't have vowels either. So like, I think Malak or MLK or whatever can mean angel. It can mean king. Did I lose you?
No, it's Moloch, Melech, Malash, Moloch. You know, spelled Melish, but yeah, absolutely.
Or like the Nakash in the garden can mean snake, shining one, or
if you're praise, it means tree.
Well, it's like verb form,
Come on.
adjective form, and noun form, right? And it's not always clear.
Well,
wait a minute, John. John, I have an
say?
objection to your comment about praise.
Okay.
To have a war with an unarmed soldier is just, I mean, you can't justify that.
There's no honor in that. There's no honor.
Right. I
Pick
some higher fruit there.
Are you accusing me of attacking an unarmed
Low-hanging
man
fruit,
who's hands tied behind his back kind of thing? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's pretty much that you're Arthur and he's the Black Knight and he's not got any limbs left and he's just hopping or crawling at you or something. Come on.
Is that like the Monty Python version?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Well, I have too much fun giving Praise a hard time about that little phase where he was in there with the no, it means trees, which are also representative. It actually means the trees actually mean phallic symbols.
What do you mean phase? What do you mean by phase?
As far as I know, he's overcome that little interpretation.
Until what approximate future time?
Are you suggesting that there may be a flip flop at some point?
What position has not been flopped and flipped over? And
listen, let's not bash Praise. I love
him. He's a sweetheart.
He's a great guy.
Yes.
Honestly, I think some of his flip flopping he does purely for drama value. I
hope not,
because
I think he's got people whispering in his ear all the time.
Yeah.
Well, no, I agree with you on that completely. I mean, some of those individuals who remain nameless are, well, let's just say a few of them I've had rather vitriolic conversations with myself, and a lot of this stuff is just getting off.
You're right.
People going off their rockers.
It's too bad that sheep. Sorry, thought you were done. Go ahead.
No, that's it. I'm done.
I really wish that Sheep had hung around because I wanted to give him what I think may be an equivalent to the story of purgatory for the Irish to explain the existence of fairies within Catholicism, in the idea of reincarnation to the Buddhists, and how you could associate that pretty darned easy, I think, to a view of Christianity. Now, is it dishonest to create purgatory? Well, maybe.
So, Richard, are you starting to lean towards universalism in a way, or what are your thoughts?
Oh, definitely not. I am not leaning toward universalism. There's way too many assumptions in there. I believe that all of us were told the truth originally. What the story became twisted over time is another question.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a question I asked too, John. I believe you, though. I think you, like you said, it's not clear. There's enough in there to not be sure about it. But I would say the paradigm that you're promoting about accountability would suggest that that's an open option, so that you'd be like a potential, or what do they call it? They call it a hopeful universalist. But I would suggest that the arguments you use against judgment or guilt, let's say, that you talk about, that would suggest that you kind of remind me of David Bentley Hart, in other words, he's a philosopher, Christian philosopher, and he makes a. I would suggest if you're not familiar with him, that you might find some interesting points he makes about the nature of judgment and the eternal state. Why he thinks that universalism is probably true. But yeah, I think that those are the implications of kind of some of your ideas. But I respect the fact that you may not necessarily hold to that.
I want to qualify the beginning of that entire idea set by saying, I think, please confirm or deny, that you accidentally called me John when you meant to say Richard to start the whole thing. I don't think John's going to agree with you.
If I did, yeah, I was talking to you, Richard.
Okay.
At least for the majority of what I said.
Okay.
Before we
so
go
what
on-
about universalism, John?
real quick, before we get on to that, so what's up, Andrew? How you doing? Andrew has joined the stream, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello. Heard you sprained your ankle earlier, John. Just want to say, hope that heals.
He's
I
humbled.
appreciate it. Yeah, I am officially out of commission for a few days, I would imagine. It's my ankle is extremely swollen. I'm debating on taking a picture of it and posting it. It's bad.
Oh, would you?
But it's coming down a little bit. I've got it wrapped up pretty tight, and it's taking been ice, and it's taking the swelling down some, but I'm definitely my mother showed up and brought me crutches. That was pretty funny. It was like, well, thanks, Mom. I appreciate you coming to give me some crutches. She's like, well, I called several Goodwills, and the one that was right by us had several pairs. So me and your dad went and swung by and got some for you. I'm like, thanks, Mom. I appreciate it.
What a practical mom.
Oh man, I have one of the best moms of all time. She's I joke that, although I'm actually kind of serious about this, that when my mom dies, I am totally screwed, because she has been praying for me. I mean, I think since I was born, but has prayed for me hard, basically since I left home.
You know why she prayed so hard, right?
Of all the times that I have barely dodged death, I mean, the guardian angels are going to be like, oh, when my mother passes, they're going to be like, oh, thank goodness we can finally get a break.
But doesn't that mean you perish?
Yeah, probably.
I'd like to propose the idea that she was over praying ahead of time to make up for your age difference.
Well, that can also be true. But okay, here's the reason I'm pretty darn sure that my mom was like getting my guardian angels. Okay, so they lived when I was in college, right? They lived in England. So we had 6-hour time difference. And I cannot tell you the number of times that I was in preparation to go conduct either very stupid or, in some cases, illegal activity. And I would get a phone call from my mother when it was, middle of the night, their time. And she would say, I just woke up and God told me, I just had this feeling that I needed to call you and see what you were doing. And I'd be like, oh, everything's good, Mom. I'm just hanging out with some friends. You're like,
I wasn't about to snort a cat. I really wasn't.
Exactly. And I'm like, and I cannot tell you the number of times that happened. And I mean, there are instances where like I was going to leave with people, I didn't go, like car wreck, or a couple times people got arrested, different things, and I'm like, Okay, this is
Now-
weird. Of course.
Okay, now
Then-
talk about confirmation bias.
Oh, it's 100% confirmation bias. Sure.
Wait. Does it have to be
Just-
100%
just the-
confirmation bias?
just the way
or,
it's just the way I was raised. Like
I mean, are you joking, or did things really happen like that?
No, I'm being dead serious. Things really happen like that, and no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I'm not even getting into the details of like crazy crap that happened to me.
Well, you can't shock me. I had a waking dream that fed me information I'd never heard of. In fact, nobody had. So you're gonna have a hard time surprising me.
Oh no, I mean, yeah, I freely accept that those things happen. I mean, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I mean, there's things that have happened to me, especially over the last decade of my life, have been much too coincidental, in my opinion. I mean, like, case in point. So after my brain surgery, when I had a bunch of crazy stuff happen in my life. Anyway, I won't bore you with all the details in that context. However,
Good.
while I was trying to contemplate, I was probably the most depressed I've ever been in my entire life. So I've never been like depressed before. I was like down, right? Because my whole life had been like upheaved and was facing new challenges and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, very long story short, I was in the middle of some of the most intense prayer of my entire life, right? Like, I mean, it was intense stuff. Anyway, I was basically begging God for us, like, help and what's gonna happen next. I got to figure out a way to redefine who I am, right? And I get done praying, and I kid you not, no less than 2 or 3 minutes goes by, and my phone rang, and it was a guy who I had talked with a little over a year prior in business, my old venture, and I told him when the bill on he basically chose a different company than mine, and I was like, "Well, tell you what, when your bill hits $100,000 from them, they still didn't fix the problem. Call me." And he calls me, and I guess he told me his name. I was like, "Oh, hey, what's going on? Like, what can I do for it?" And he's like, "Well, so you remember how you told me when my bill hit $100,000 and they wanted to fix my problem that I should call you? Well, I'm calling you." I was like, "Oh, really?"
Wow.
And we set. So the next day, I go and meet up with him at his office, and before I left the building, he had agreed to do a $120,000 deal with me. And I was like, I remember driving back to my house and just being like, "Huh, that's crazy." I went from not knowing what I was going to do with myself to, in literally less than 24 hours, getting over $100,000 business deal.
Yeah.
And it was kind of the thing that kind of kickstart me back into, getting my life back in order. But anyway,
Can I tell one before I go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm super boring and I don't care, and I like practical things that work easily and well. So I always take the same route to the grocery store, and it doesn't matter, what hour. There's a 24-hour store, and I go there and I buy cigarettes. So at this one point, I was down to literally my last $5, and I was about to spend $4.87 on it on a pack of smokes. So it was either eat or smoke. So I decided to smoke. So I went to the store. On my way back, I'm thinking, "Gosh,
listen, the nicotine suppresses your hunger, your appetite.
See?
So it's a
I
very
made the
smart
right
move. If
choice.
you're broke, you
Thank
need the nicotine.
Thank you
Go
very
ahead.
much. I do see the logic there, just not necessarily good for your body. But I'm walking back on the same route, and I'm kind of complaining to the Father that I'm broke, and I'm saying, "Well, you're gonna have to line me up with some work now, man, because I just did something really stupid. And if you understand I'm stupid," and he says he does, according to the text, "then you're gonna have to show me some forgiveness and line me up with something." He says, "Take that street over there, next one to the right that you never take." I'm like, "I don't like that street. It's too long. It's out of the way. I don't like that. It's impractical." He says, "Take it anyway." I said, "Okay." There's literally, I didn't count it out of respect, but there was tri-folded stack of 20s literally in the middle of the street at 2:30 in the morning. No one to even accuse of having dropped it. There's not a car. There's not a person.
Yeah, it's interesting how the seemingly coincidental items that happen like that. I mean, it's like, well, okay, obviously at some point somebody probably dropped it or something happened. But
Yeah, I'm sure.
but what directed you to go down that path is the
A
point.
voice in my head said, "Take this street you don't like."
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's the thing that the atheists want to avoid. Right. Is like what? It's not the how did it get there. It's what directed you to go look at it, or to,
Sure.
to go find it. And that to me is the bigger question. That
I never take that. I still don't take that street.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I think, in my opinion, as you get older, if you're actually being open-minded and observant and actually contemplate these sort of things, there's a lot of instances that that start to strain credulity in terms of them not having some sort of external influence.
It's funny because if you flip that around and you ask them to justify something that's extremely unlikely, they'll tell you that it's not reasonable to believe something like that.
Right. Right. That's that's very true. All right, so we have an atheist with us. Andrew, do you want to address anything we're discussing?
No, kind of just a different topic I want to chat about anyways, so go ahead.
I want to wish you all peace and respect. Thanks for letting me in for a minute, John. You're a joy. Good night, Jamie. Talk to me sometime.
Yeah, sorry about that noise there. Surprised this thing's working.
You're on your phone or your mic?
Oh yeah, I'm driving, so I'm trying to be careful. That noise was me hitting the things on the side of the road.
Bumps, are you hitting the ridges? Yeah. I was wondering what that noise. That was an interesting noise. Go ahead.
Yeah, the question I've been wanting to ask another creationist or whatever is, so have you heard the argument or the defeaters for like zeitgeist type arguments about like the similarity between the Christian story and other pagan myths, and, how they're similar or whatever and all that, and how that's debunked? I think several scholars have given reasons to think that's not really an argument or not really inept arguments or whatever. Have you heard that? Like how Jesus is like Dionysus or etc. Other pagan gods. Have you heard that?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that. I've also heard that Jesus was actually teaching Buddhism, and like there's all sorts of different concepts that are put forth. I think in my opinion, when you look at what are the underlying root similarities and differences, and do they contradict or correlate? And in some instances, I think there could be different names for different things, and others it's obvious that they're different, right? But I think the other thing that people oftentimes want to like dismiss and or gloss over is the premise that like from my perspective, I have zero issue with there being other entities that could be construed as quote unquote deities, right? And the minor gods, right? Let's assume Lucifer is real. Why would he not be construed as a quote unquote god from our finite mortal perspective?
Yeah, I'm on board with Heiser too. Scholar Michael Heiser, who suggests that the Bible is actually teaching that there are other gods that are angels, essentially, right? The divine council idea. And so, yeah, I agree. And my point was just that there are a few that seem rather similar. And I think we make the mistake sometimes if we're young Earth creationists to jump on board to some of these scholars that are actually old Earth creationists and some of their arguments to dismiss it. I would suggest that, well, if the history of the kingdoms on Earth are young, like we believe, then it's likely that like people will point to stories of where it seemed to be written down way before the Bible wrote down the flood narrative, right? So Utnapishtim or Gilgamesh, the Bible's borrowing from that. And the apologetic is kind of like, well, the Bible's, the polemical arguments and stuff like that, which I accept most of the time. But I think if the earth is young, we should expect similarities in stories. And whether or not it was written down first doesn't really matter. The question is, does it derive from an actual event? And if so, when it was written down doesn't matter. And we should expect that if we have the actual divine history from God, God breathed, then that really we shouldn't feel the need to make such explanations all the time for every single situation.
Yeah. Well, and I think something else that's really plaguing, it's plagued the quote unquote church for a long time, but I think it's in the modern arguments, I think it's become even more exacerbated, is I think for some folks, there is nothing, they take the Bible to be such a foundation that they've actually turned it into a box and they operate from the perspective, if the Bible doesn't specifically say X, therefore that must be false, or it couldn't possibly be true, or there couldn't be some sort of premise that has any kind of substance or credulity in its favor, right? And
I'm going to blame the Baptists.
and I kind of operate from the perspective of I'm not suggesting there's not structure and whatnot, but if you're going to try and argue that there is nothing about our existence and God in this context or anything else that could be going on other than what is fully delineated in the canon, I think you're being extraordinarily naive and closed-minded. And it's so we're told that there are thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of basically an innumerable number of angels, right? But we've heard the names of 4 or 5 maybe. Okay, so those 4 or 5 have names, but the other innumerable number don't exist, or they're just kind of little spots of light that are kind of in the ether but don't actually what does that even mean, right? And if they exist, then there's plethora of entities that are running around. And then if of some gigantic number, a giant chunk of them fell and are now operating in this plane of existence, who the hell are they, right? And just because they don't have their names doesn't mean that they couldn't have names. And this is where, anyway, to me, when if you actually apply some brain power and contemplation of all this kind of stuff and be like, okay, I don't view my existence from this very ethereal, harps and clouds and the stuff, that you see in a stained glass window in a Catholic cathedral. If you don't view it from that perspective, then I think the potential for your mind to be dramatically more expanded and to actually consider, what are some of the more the fundamental principles that could be in play in my existence that are not just, esoteric concepts that nobody can actually define very well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the hard thing about it is there's just so much out there that people claim, and I'm sure a lot of it's bunk. So that makes it either undermines a thinking person from considering it, or it muddies the water. And it's kind of like the UFO thing. It's is there a residue of truth in there? I would say probably something unexplained. Same thing with esoteric spiritual claims. Some people get overly obsessed with it. So I think a lot of people, don't think about it, I guess. But that's why I like Heiser, because I think he takes kind of a smart approach to it. But that's, takes the Bible seriously but presses people to ask the question, what do you really believe? What can you accept? How real is your experience to your worldview? I think you should be open-minded. And, try to be as connected
What's up, Wesley? How you doing?
I'm okay. I have had some huge experiences, and I often err that the magnitude of them that they happen to me, I presume that they happen to everyone. But I will say what happened to me as fact, and should it have happened to you, in hopes that it will help you and to speak plainly about them. Let me begin with January 4th, 2003. In the word, it says, he shall pour of his spirit upon all flesh. Your sons and daughters shall prophesy. Your young men shall dream dreams. Your old men shall see visions. So at about 2 a.m. that night, I heard Jesus speak from the clouds, and he said, it is time. And he poured of his spirit on all flesh. A moment passed, and I heard the emulator, the lunatic Satan, in same tonality, say the words sad and delicious. I walked into the street and saw a bunch of people run outside of a bar into the street, about 15 of them. And they were all going, we've got the Holy Spirit. We've got the Holy Spirit. What do we do? And I looked at the guy standing next to me. We just were dumbstruck and didn't know what to say, but I knew right then that something great had happened. Now let's move forward to 2005. August 25th, Jesus appeared to me wearing a white robe, dark olive skin, black hair. A child in the flesh jumped up on a park bench and said, it is he. And there he stood behind her, and he didn't say anything to me. And he looked at me like I wasn't doing enough, and I knew it. And then he vanished. And I walked up the street. I was near Wrigley Field that afternoon, the baseball park. And I walked into a pub I frequented. And another man walked in with his head chinned, and he said, I just saw Jesus. And then he sat down at a table to get his beer. And I went up to him, and I tried to get him to say another word about it. He never said another word about it one way or the other. Now, on October 10, that same year, 2005, I was asleep in bed. I had been shamed for my belief and was imprisoned. And in the bed that I was sleeping, something paralyzed me. And it was Satan, like an electric force paralyzing me. And the voice didn't speak with lips and breath to my ears. It spoke in my head, saying, I shall turn and toss you violently like a ball. And then it released me from this paralysis. And I sat up and I looked into the hallway, and there were two Filipino nurses, and they were going, ooh, great intelligence, great intelligence. And I don't want to presume that this happened to everyone on earth. I've often said that it did, but I have no justification for that. And I probably err in doing so. That's what happened to me. And I realized that the part of my soul that Satan, the lunatic, could touch was the part of my soul that is death. Where the wages of sin is death, every time I had done a sin that I had not atoned for, it had turned part of my soul, my temple, my mansion, into dead ashes. And I did see that with my eyes one night. I saw the Holy Spirit of Jesus like a pearl of great wealth, snow white of color, in the belly, very large. And in it was another pearl, smaller. It was like a pearl and a pearl. And that Satan that told me it was going to turn and toss me violently like a ball could not touch that pearl. It was the only part of me he could not touch or paralyze. So again, in March 31st of 2010, that same force tried to attack me and could not get into me at all. And I presume it spoke saying, don't tell. And I looked into the Bible, and I only read the King James Version. And I discovered that Satan that had raped, might be a word to describe it, my mind, perverted my brain, my temple, had perverted the words written in Isaiah. In the full verse, I shall turn and toss you violently like a ball into a large country. There thou shalt die, and there the chariots of thy glory shall be the shame of the Lord's house. So that's what happened to me concerning experience, spiritual reality.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your story there, or stories there, Wesley, and your different experiences. It's always yeah, you never know what is out there and what is possible for us to experience. It's very
well,
very
if I may only suggest one thing, I suppose, and I'm not going to press you fellows on this, should it have happened to you too, it's okay to say it happened to everybody. But I'm not going to ask you whether it happened to you. I'm not going to ask you to tell me, and I'm just going to say what happened to me that night.
All right, Wesley. So Redefined Living says we can never let you and Richard get together because the two of you would have epic conversations about this kind of stuff. All right, guys, real quick. So we got let's see, John Vance. You joined first, and then Soldier of God.
I'm at 5%. My bar is at 5%. I'm going to have to leave to charge my phone. Thank you for letting me on. Are you here every week at this time?
It varies dramatically on when I'm available. Right now, I don't know if you heard. I've sprained my ankle, so I'm laying in bed at the moment. So I'll be in bed for the next couple of days. I'll probably do some more streams, but my streams are kind of, I don't have anything scheduled, to put it that way normally.
May I ask what name you like to be called? Is it a nickname, or do you give your real name here?
Oh, my name's John. Or people call me LPP, or it doesn't matter.
All right, John. I'm going to check out, and I will keep looking for your show. Yours and one other out of the hundreds I've seen are the only two that seem to take a real and natural, as plain on the table as possible approach. And I really like that. I hope you continue.
Well, I appreciate that.
Okay. Good night.
Have a great night.
Good night, Wesley.
Good night.
What's up, John? Welcome to the stream. What's on your mind? What brings you in, and what would you like to talk about?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're coming in.
Okay. Yeah, I was just you guys are talking about the concept of God, and actually I was going to ask Wilson if he believes that Jesus is co-equal to God when he has these episodes of seeing Jesus. As I imagine most Christians believe when they see Jesus, they're seeing the face of God, whereas I don't see Jesus as a God per se. I see Jesus as a messenger. So I guess metaphysically I don't identify as a Trinitarian, but more of a Unitarian outlook on things.
So are you more of like a modalist that okay, well let's back up. So you're not a Trinitarian. Do you believe that Jesus is divine and God made man in the flesh, or just
Is he created being?
Angel of some kind?
It would be like Jesus would be like just a messenger, as opposed to
I believe Jesus is an angel, and I even believe Jesus and Michael are synonymous, but I still believe that Jesus is the eternal Son of God. That's usually the main question people have about that.
I don't believe Jesus is the eternal Son of God. I believe that's heresy. I believe it's idolatry in some way.
Oh.
You're making an idol out of a mortal being. who's already dead.
We don't have to like get stuck on arguing about this or anything, but I would just ask, like, what does he mean when he's praying to the Father? You know, unite them like me and you were united before the foundation of the world, etc. Or First John. What do you do with that?
Well,
or John 1, I mean.
Yeah. Well, you also have to realize that the Bible has been manipulated over the years, so it's not exactly divine source or from the source, I guess you could say, from Jesus. And it has been manipulated, like from the councils of Nicaea that came up with the Trinitarian doctrine. And I find it's very manipulative in a way, because it in a way it depersonalizes God. So it's like you have to, experience God through these three things somehow in some way. And also, well, and then
how do you know which part of the Bibles you can trust, though? Because it sounds like you have a biblical worldview, and I would challenge you to consider looking at studying the Council of Nicaea closely. That's a common thing I've heard, but the way I understand church history is that it's not that they invented the doctrine at that time. Scholarship can show that Jesus was considered part of the Godhead, at least, well before that, and that the Council of Nicaea, they may have codified it or whatever in a sense, but that was because of the majority view of the different leaders from the different churches that came together, is the way I understand it.
Well, I view it as like it's like the Catholic Church took over in that part of the world when Christianity first was being proselytized. And you know what they always say about history? History is always written by the victors. And the Catholic Church won over the message and took over the original message from Jesus and his disciples for their own benefit. It wouldn't be naive to say that the Catholic Church manipulated the scripture in some way to fit their narrative so they can control the population. Because at the time, you have to think, like, a lot of peasants couldn't read. And so...
Well, let me push back on that for a second.
Okay.
I believe the Catholic Church is literally the Roman Empire spoken of in the prophet Daniel, that is the beast power and brings forth the Antichrist. I agree with the reformers on that. And so, from my view, I would say it's an awfully interesting thing that they would spell themselves into the book and make themselves the enemy of Christ in the book by changing it to that sort of picture, because I'm a historicist on my view of Daniel and Revelation. So I have a problem with that. Also, when you look back at the earliest church fathers, meaning the leaders of the churches from the apostles on in church history, they quoted the Bible so much in their many letters that we have to this day, that we know before the Roman Catholic Church actually developed, that by looking at their letters, we can, that's just one source we can reconstruct the New Testament from. So, and with the old manuscripts we have of the Dead Sea Scrolls especially, and the different streams all over, the different streams of manuscripts that came down through history, it's pretty much a guarantee that nobody had control over the text in order to change it. That's just like a fact of scholarship. What would you say to that?
Well, why would Christianity be the only Abrahamic religion that proselytizes the Trinitarian doctrine, and then the other Abrahamic faiths don't, like Judaism and Islam? What makes Christianity so different?
The Jews had there's quite a bit of evidence that the Jews had some leanings towards a dual facets of God. in there's multiple instances of that, but I think that you also have to look at it from the perspective of, I think it's very clear that over history, different things were being revealed. So unless you're going to argue that all things about God were revealed from Genesis, which obviously they were not, then the unveiling of who God is happening is not that, in my opinion, not that difficult of a explanation of, or partial explanation of what's going on. But then you also have to look at the different allusions that are all throughout the Old Testament of the Messiah, and then the fulfillment of those different things. But then more importantly, the question I was going to have for you is, if you think the Catholic Church just manipulated everything, are you suggesting that the Dead Sea Scrolls were manipulated?
I'm not quite sure exactly on what the Dead Sea Scrolls entails.
Well, let me restructure my question. So,
Sure.
Is it your, make sure we're on the same page. So, is it your position that the Catholic Church modified, altered, inserted different things into the scriptures to falsely create the premise of the Trinity?
Well, there's definitely like the Catholic Church doctrine is basically you have to pray upon the statue Mary, and you also have confession.
I get all those.
You cast your sins upon the.
Hang on.
Yeah.
You're dodging the question. I understand all that stuff. That's not what I asked you. I asked you if it is your position that the Catholic Church has modified, inserted, deleted text in the scriptures that have artificially created the Trinity and the divinity of Christ.
I believe that the Catholic Church does have a role in inserting the Trinitarian doctrine, yes.
Okay, so is it your position, therefore, that the Dead Sea Scrolls were created by the Catholic Church with these false concepts instantiated therein?
Like, it seems like the Dead Sea Scrolls are kind of a non sequitur because they weren't even discovered until 50 years ago, 60 years ago.
Yeah,
I'm talking about like a first century history. I'm not talking about like
Jamie, hang on. Okay, dude. The reason I'm asking that question is that when they were found by us has zero relevance to when they were created in relation to when they were created. If you're going to argue that the Catholic Church is the one who created the Trinity through modification, if they were written prior to the ability for the Roman Catholic Church to pull this off, and then we don't have access to them until recently, and then when we look at them and match them up to the things that would have to have been modified and edited, deleted, inserted by the Catholic Church in order for the concept of the Trinity to exist, but in them they exist and they're almost exactly the same, then unless you're going to argue that the Catholic Church was the ones who wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls, which they don't really have the ability to do so, I'm not really sure how you can extrapolate all this out that they are the ones that falsely created the Trinity doctrine. Do you follow me?
Basically, like their whole worship is very different than I guess the rest of the denominations of the church.
You're dodging the point. I get all that. I am not in support of the Catholic Church, most of their doctrines, their practices, all that kind of stuff. That's not the question at hand. We're talking about whether or not the divinity of Christ is true or false. And your position, unless I'm incorrect, your position is that Christ was not God made man, that he's just a messenger. He's not actually divine, and that anything outside of that, showcases or provides evidence in favor of him being divine and the Trinity being even remotely substantiated by Scripture. You're claiming, unless I'm wrong, deny or accept or deny my point. Is it your position that the Catholic Church is responsible for those concepts and they are not what was initially being put forth by the early Christians?
Because it's hard to, yeah.
Well, when you first started this, you were rather staunch in your position that the Council of Nicaea and the Catholic Church is what created the concept of the Trinity. So I'm now asking you again: did the Roman Catholic Church?
They had a role. I didn't say they were the you know. I would say, maybe I would rephrase this, that the Catholic Church had maybe a role in how the Bible was interpreted, as opposed to, I guess, directly editing the Bible. Now, in terms of divinity of Christ, there is doctrine that says that Jesus, it's basically he got crucified on the cross, and then he rose from the dead after 30 days. So he came back because he had the Last Supper. Then after the Last Supper, he got crucified. And then when he was crucified, he was supposedly dead. And then he came back to life in the flesh when he visited, forget the apostles, I think that's what it was. Yeah. He visited the apostles, and the apostles were so amazed that he came back. And he's just like, oh, you must have been a spirit in the flesh. Or you must be a ghost or something like that. Like, no, I'm not a ghost. And he eats something physical. And he's trying to prove that it's not a ghost, but it gets fabricated that he was a ghost. So in those scriptures alone, I feel that the whole story is kind of fabricated to begin with. The Catholic Church had a role in keeping that the divinity of Christ. Because we are worshiping basically a dead idol. You're worshiping a dead man. But you have this kind of manipulative Trinitarian doctrine. It says, oh no, he's a spirit in the flesh. He's right, 3 in 1 or 1 in 3 or something like that.
I'm gonna address that in just a second here. Real quick, George Bond, thank you very, very much for your very generous $50 super chat. He says donate to the Maddox superannuation fund. Yes, George is having a good time drinking beer, having pizza. Although, hey, folks, we all need to be praying for the Australians and for George for the utter madness that is happening in the land down under. It is getting beyond the pale, and some of the things that are getting ridiculous are happening not that far away from George, and they're living in a police state now. It's getting bad. And if anybody doesn't believe me, there's plenty of evidence all over the place of police shooting people and having to show papers. You're getting tackled and arrested for smoking cigarettes outside your condo building without wearing a mask. It's insane. The things that are going on there. But real quick, we'll get back, John. I'm gonna get back to your addressing what you were just saying there. But real quick, Soldier of God, I think it's Saint Beloved, right? How are you doing? Welcome to the stream.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, anything you want to inject to the conversation real quick?
I don't know. I was gonna share a testimony. Do you guys believe that God still speaks audibly to people?
I don't think it's like an everyday type of thing, but do I think that God communicates with folks? Yeah, I do.
Is there intermediaries?
No, randomly, I feel like God has spoken to me, given me revelations throughout my life, but I did street evangelism for 3 years, and I would pray for God to give me words of knowledge for people and stuff like that, and it happened a couple times, but never on a regular basis. And for instance, one time it was about to start to rain, And I was like, praise God. Like inside, I was kind of just saying that. And I heard a voice inside me say, pretty cool sprinkler system, huh? And I just got rocked. Like, cause it's like a supernatural sprinkler system. But I just questioned, like, was that God or did that just pop into my head? You know what I mean? And people
Only knows Jesus.
are totally against it. I don't know. I question it. But then at another time, I was at a church and the pastor put 30 chairs up on the stage and told 30 people to sit down and then told 30 people to stand behind them. And we prayed for like a couple minutes just for a word of knowledge for the person in front of me. And the person in front of me was like a really elderly African American woman who was just looked like super innocent, super sweet spirit, everything. And I kept hearing her house was chaotic, just like pure chaos. And I almost didn't tell her, but then I told her, and she started crying, and she was like saying she's raising her kids, and they're using drugs in the house, and it's just like pure chaos. But I've done that before though, and I've been wrong. You know what I mean? And like I almost walked away from my faith because of healing, like praying for people in wheelchairs and stuff. And like another crazy thing that happened was we prayed for this guy for like 45 minutes, like no exaggeration. Like we kept saying we're not quitting until he's healed. And we finally give up. 45 minutes later, walk outside the church, and guy's walking through the parking lot and he's like, hey, are you guys from that church? And we're like, yeah. He's like, can you guys pray for my brother? Like he owes a drug dealer money, like he's in big trouble. And we're like, absolutely. We prayed for his brother. And then the guy is like, thanks. And he starts walking away and he's like, whoa, what the heck did you guys do? And we're like, what do you mean? He's like, my back. Like I've had chronic pain since I can't remember, and now like it's gone. And we all just looked at each other in amazement. Like we didn't even pray for healing for that guy, but he got healed. But we prayed for a guy for 45 minutes in the church and nothing happened. Like to me, I just don't get it. It's hard. I struggle.
Sometimes you have enough faith not to be healed.
Yeah. Do you guys all think like we should be healing people today?
I don't discount that healing can happen.
Shit, dude. Like we don't do shit. Like if someone gets healed, it's the Holy Spirit for whatever reason at whatever time. We don't do a damn thing.
Well, Jesus said that we would do better things than he did.
Yeah, I kind of think that was corporate for the disciples, unless you think people are raising people from the dead these days.
Yeah, I think I'm not suggesting that it can't be done. Miracles don't occur. That's not what I'm suggesting at all. I don't know if is it the Benny Hill? Who's the guy that did up with the jacket? All the crazy stuff.
Benny Hinn?
Yeah, there we go. I don't know if that's I don't take that. I think that's a facade myself, but anyway.
Well, didn't God say like take the people the sick to the elders of the church?
Yeah, it does say to pray for them and to pray for each other and all that stuff. It doesn't mean like you got some like special station of like prophet or healer or any of that stuff. He gives gifts as he sees fit to different people at different times, you know.
Well, here's the real question. So Dell says that Smokey has COVID. So Smokey, do you need to have a intervention? And
Get a bottle of motor oil out of the garage.
Listen. I don't know how comfortable I feel with laying on of hands if you have the COVID, but
They're gonna start saying how you need a poke in order to interact with COVID people online or something.
It's yeah. I don't know. I just don't think it's happening in the same context. I don't necessarily. Again, I'm not suggesting it can't happen. I just don't think it's happening to the extent that it's being projected by some. Would be my position, but
yeah, I agree with that.
That's my.
Gotta go ask Bill Johnson about the gold flakes raining down from his ceiling and the special deal he got from Amazon for all the glitter.
Yeah, I think some of that stuff is like very extreme extrapolations of like, yeah, I had a glitter parade and a water fountain turned into magic H2O. I mean, okay, PMARS, really, dude? Why? Why, PMARS? Why must you keep coming here with the freaking stock accounts? It's so obnoxious, dude. Why? PMARS, if you could just be normal, you could come through with just, okay, I'll tell you who needs an intervention.
Why is PMARS mad at you?
Because I banned his stock accounts for coming in, dropping N-bombs, and being an idiot. I mean,
well, he just does more of that. I know.
Well, I think he still holds a grudge because I called him out for calling Jesus a tranny, and
you did that too. Good on you. All right.
Yeah. So I think that was the problem. But
hey, Smokey, did I stress you out so bad that got you sick?
No, I'm actually not sick. I don't know. I mean, I do have allergies, but I'm not actually sick.
All right, so this year for allergies has been very bizarre for me. So I usually have extraordinarily bad allergies in the springtime when all the flowers bloom. This year, I had hardly any. And then as the day fall hit and trees started shedding their leaves, I have had crazy allergies, which I normally don't have allergies in the fall. It's been like a complete flip-flop. It's like we are living in opposite world where up is down, left is right, sanity is insanity, and my freaking allergies are switching seasons. It's very obnoxious.
Hey, the flu's gone.
Oh, and by the way, guys, there was a grand total of 69. 69 total cases of influenza in 2020 in the United States of America. Yeah. I'm just going to call bovine scatology on that one because you're telling me we went from 60 million cases in 2019 to 69 in the entire United States of America the following year. I'm just going to call bullshit. I'm sorry.
When in doubt, it's COVID.
But that's just me.
I'll be right back. I have to switch devices and charge my phone.
All right.
I figured Smokey wanted to go after this the guy who was talking about.
Well, I assumed that John Vance was why he joined because I know how much Smokey loves the Catholic Church, so I'm sure there was going to be some. And well, let's just say I'm also going to go out on a limb and suggest that heretic accusations will abound. So, John, we still haven't really clarified the point that I was making earlier. So, are you suggesting that the scriptures in their current form do not indicate that, number one, Christ is divine, and number two, the Trinity is a rational conclusion in the current text?
Didn't sound like he even accepted the Bible as being authoritative in any way, the way he was talking about the crucifixion and such. So I'm trying to figure out where he gets his. He seemed to be a oneness type believer, but then yet he's kind of poo-pooing the whole Bible. How do you know what to believe?
I'm actually Muslim.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you believe that the Quran is the true inspired word of God? Then I guess. So
it's been the least tempered doctrine of the Abrahamic text from the source. So I don't necessarily view it as has all the supreme wisdom to it, but I do believe there is value in it with having it directly from the source. When it was Muhammad's disciples that wrote down his testimony on camel bones and leaves, as opposed to the Bible, which has been rewritten multiple times in different languages, and is not exactly from, I guess you could say, Jesus, the prophet. Some stuff has been. It's just like, it's kind of it's like, if you tell somebody something, if you whisper something in somebody's ear, right? By the time it gets to Soldier of God at the end of the road, he's gonna say something different than my original message, right? So that's basically the Bible over the years. That's my argument.
Okay,
oh, sorry, John, go ahead.
So I have to ask, so have you ever actually read the Bible?
Pardon?
So have you ever actually read the New Testament?
I've read parts of it, yeah.
Okay. So your interpretation, again, I want clarification. I want you to actually answer questions directly. So is the New Testament in its current form, does it indicate rather directly that Jesus Christ is divine? Yes or no?
Is it the King James version?
And any of the top 10 translations, do they clearly indicate that Jesus Christ is divine? Yes or no?
Oh, they do, but I don't necessarily agree with that.
Well, I didn't ask if you agreed with it. I asked if that's what it's clearly stated in them.
Right.
And that's a yes or no question. So yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. And is it your position that the only reason that that indication is in there is that it was inserted by the Catholic Church? Yes or no?
It's a tough one. See, maybe partly yes. There's something to do with it.
Okay, well, I mean, you were earlier in this conversation, you were rather firm in your position that it was done so by the Catholic Church. The Council of Nicaea instantiated the Trinity doctrine. The Trinity doctrine didn't exist, or the concept of it didn't exist prior to, nor was Christ anything other than a messenger. That was your position earlier in this conversation, correct?
Yeah, I believe that the Catholic Church has more to do with the propagation of the validity of the Trinitarian doctrine and its enforcement in the early Christian years. So
now
yes.
let's look at this again in the context of the Dead Sea Scrolls. If the Dead Sea Scrolls were created prior to any of the stuff that you're talking about in relation to the Catholic Church was even in play, and the Dead Sea Scrolls match up to the current versions, quote unquote, that have been rewritten, translated through all these different languages, which was your point a minute ago, as to why it's not valid. But the early versions that we're finding are almost exactly the same verbally as to the modern versions. And they were created prior to the influence that the Catholic Church could have had that you're referring to. How is your position remotely coherent in your accusation and assignment of the initiation, profligation, foundation of these doctrinal principles, if you're claiming that it was the Catholic Church that did them, but they existed prior to the Catholic Church? How is your position remotely coherent?
Are the Dead Sea Scrolls actually taken into account by other pastors of the current church, though? I heard that they weren't. They're not valid.
The Dead Sea Scrolls are viewed as being extremely valid.
In what way? Because it was basically an isolated tribe.
Okay, dude. Okay, so there's been boatloads of different copies found in multiple parts of the world, right? The New Testament as an example. Okay, they found them all over the place. Then the significant, but they were older, or sorry, they were younger. They were earlier or later copies, right? The whole point of the significance of the Dead Sea Scrolls is that it's an earlier version, earlier written copies of the same books of the Bible, right? The same scrolls are coming in, and then when they're matched up to the ones that were written later and later, and then matched up against the most recent ones that we have, right? And they directly correlate, then to argue that they have no significance and not being accepted when they actually match up and indicate that, unlike the position that you're taking, which is they have been manipulated, rewritten, new things have been inserted, so on and so forth, they actually annihilate that position. They directly contradict that position, and they're in. I'll let CJ and Smokey back in here, and they're probably, even though they go at each other on a regular basis, I'm guessing that the two of them may agree on this particular topic with me, and I think Jamie does as well. But I don't know. Welcome back, Smokey and CJ. Do you guys want to address this little point we're hearing about the Dead Sea Scrolls?
I missed it, so I can't really.
Pope is the devil.
Well, so there's a couple things. Say again.
I said, get him, CJ.
Well, I fully intend to. So I have a question for you, Soldier of God. Why do you deny Allah if you're a Muslim?
No. Soldier of God is not. We're talking about John Vance is the Muslim.
Is John Vance the Muslim? Okay, sorry, whichever one it was. My apologies. John Vance. So
John's a Muslim.
Why do you deny Allah? You say that the Torah and the Gospel cannot be trusted. So why do you deny the word of Allah?
I never said that the Torah or the Gospel can't be trusted. I'm just saying that the
that's not what
Quran is. What?
That's not. So you would think that I could use the Gospel of John, the Gospel of Matthew, the Book of Exodus as scripture. You would affirm that?
Yeah, to a certain extent, yes.
To a certain extent. How do you affirm that it's the words of Allah to a certain extent? It's either the words of Allah or it's not.
Well, just by the rationality of it. The rationality of believing a Trinitarian doctrine is not very...
I didn't ask you about the Trinity. I asked you about the Gospels.
The Gospel? Yeah. Well, if it mentions anything about the Trinitarian doctrine, it's not valid.
Okay, but the Quran, which apparently is your holy book, says that it is valid. So
the Trinitarian?
Why do you deny the words of... No, it says the Gospels itself is valid. So why do you deny the words of Allah?
Well, that's what I'm arguing. I'm arguing that it is not the divine source of directly from Jesus and his disciples. It has been manipulated through time through organizations such as the Council of Nicaea.
Well, that's a lie.
There's a couple of things. Yeah, and thank you, Smokey. First off, the Council of Nicaea had nothing to do with canon whatsoever, so that's just wrong right out the bat. But there's actually a bigger problem than this because it doesn't really matter. Muhammad lived in the year he died 632. So the Quran is revealed to Muhammad and to his companions, which means that the Gospel.
The Quran is also revealed in the Bible too.
That's obviously a red herring because we're not talking about that.
No, that's true.
And it's not true. It's not true at all. But nonetheless, let's continue on with what we're talking
Ishmael? About. Are you familiar with Ishmael?
Hang on. Okay, you're trying to divert because you're clearly losing. This is what your Quran says in the 600s. Okay, which we have copies from the 300s. So if you're going to start telling us, hey, this was perverted, well, Muhammad was saying this about a perverted Bible. Okay, you ready? Surah 546. And we caused Jesus, son of Mary, to follow in their footsteps, confirming that which was revealed before him in the Torah. We bestowed on him the gospel, wherein is guidance and light, confirming that which was revealed before it in the Torah. So in the 600s, I think this would be around 625 AD.
Yeah.
Your prophet said that this was the revelation of Allah. And I have a copy of this, too, I can give you, Codex Sinaiticus, Codex Vaticanus, just to name two, that are 300 years older than that that say exactly what my modern day Bible does today. So, for example, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, speaking of Jesus. So, I'll ask you again, why do you deny the words of Allah?
Why am I incumbent upon believing that it's somehow divinely inspired, directly from the source, that Jesus said to worship me as
Because your
three in one?
prophet said so?
Yeah, I literally just quoted it.
No,
Muhammad said so
Wait
in
again,
the
no.
eternal
You said
words of
you
Allah.
just basically made a general statement, like a big, broad statement.
Okay,
Slow it
dude,
down.
this is
And
really
All right, so,
simple.
and
it's a
man.
big, broad statement to say.
and there was,
Speaking of first tense, Allah says,
He's not
we
getting it.
bestowed on him the gospel. That's a vague statement to you? That's broad?
well, there's more to it than just saying, okay, so all the Bible is divinely inspired.
I didn't say the Bible. I said the gospel. I'm only asking
you can't
about
directly, can you like directly source everything back to Jesus? Yes or no?
I
from
don't
the
have
Bible?
to. Muhammad confirmed it in the 600.
Oh, okay.
Can I ask you
Well,
a
100%
challenge?
serious.
That doesn't
Muhammad
make
is
any
apparently
sense.
the greatest prophet, and he said in the 600s that it was
Mhm.
totally legit.
Hey,
The
John.
All I
whole
have to do is
Bible?
trace it at least back to the 600s.
Well, not if it can't be sourced back to, because the thing is, like, when you understand like Islamic scholarship, even the hadiths, they have to refer back to the Quran, and they can't contradict the Quran. And the Quran comes from a divine source, which is directly from Muhammad.
Okay,
Oh,
but
Has been
I'm
preserved
quoting the
throughout the
Quran.
years, hasn't been
You
manipulated,
must be
hasn't been reserved,
you
hasn't been
must be a
manipulated,
Muta
hasn't been.
practicer. Are you a Muta practitioner? do you support Muta, the practice of prostitution or temporary marriage? Do you practice that?
Prostitution.
Because you have a
Nowadays it's getting ridiculous now.
Because you have a Quran verse instituting it. Actually, you have a couple technically, and then you have hadith that are redacting it, or I guess what do you guys call it?
Supporting.
No, hadith contradicts the Quran. So if the hadith
Abrogation.
contradicts the Quran, you throw out the hadith. So you should practice muta, right?
So
It wasn't abrogated, because if the Quran has priority, and the Quran says you can practice muta, and you can rent women for 3 days, and you pay them for their services of pleasuring you, and then the hadith abrogates it, then the hadith should be thrown out because it contradicts the Quran, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Beautiful. Okay, well, good. Yeah, so there you go. Whoremonger right there for you guys. That's what Muslim leads you to.
Okay, I just want to point out that you denied at
is
least
it
one
bad
verse
to-
of the Quran. Okay, so the Quran said that the gospel was bestowed on Jesus by Allah. Okay, and that in there was guidance and light. You've apparently denied that, but we can actually go greater than one verse.
I'm not denying that there's divine text in there. I'm just saying it can't be strictly sourced back to Jesus and his
It doesn't have
writings.
to be strictly sourced back to Jesus in your religion, though. Your
Because
prophet
the New Testament was written after 100 years after, or no, the Old Testament was written 100 years after Jesus'
So was
death.
Muhammad
So
wrong?
how could you
Hold on. Hey, what did you just
That's
say?
not
What-
even
what
accurate.
did you
Where
just
the
say
hell
was
is
written?
this guy getting his facts?
I don't have any idea, to be honest with you.
It's
But
true.
I'm just trying to laser
the Old
focus on
Testament
this
was
one thing, because the thing is,
it was
let's
written
just
100 years
it
after
doesn't matter.
Jesus'
Let's pretend Constantine made all of it up. Okay, he literally shit it all out one day and just decided, you know what, this is the New Testament. I'm going to slap some dude's name named Jesus on it, and we're going to call it a day. Let's just assume that's the case. Okay, Muhammad still confirmed it in the 600s. All right, so are you going to deny the words of Muhammad or not?
I'm not denying the
After the
words of
Catholic
Muhammad. You just don't understand what I'm saying.
Okay, well, Muhammad said in the 600s, so you're saying you're not denying this. Muhammad said in the 600s that this gospel was bestowed on Jesus, that
Anything
in it was guidance and
anything that
light.
is divinely directly sourced back to Jesus, yes.
Everything. So where in here does it say
Can you-
asterisk? There's certain parts of it that are corrupted. I'm curious. I'm reading it right now. I have my Quran.
Hey guys, real quick. Hey guys, hang on, time out real quick. We have a major announcement. A major announcement. Okay. For those of you who didn't know this, Dr. Kenny Rhodes has been undergoing a transition, and he has been having some hormone treatment, and finally made the major decision to become a woman. And he now wants to be it was a very, very hard decision for him to make, but it turns out that his wife is a lesbian, and she was totally fine with it. So I'm not sure what his
if Kenny goes tranny, I'm getting the extension cord.
I'm sorry, her favorite new name is going to be, but Dr. Rhodes, please tell me your new female first name. How are you doing? Welcome to the stream. And is there anything you want to share with us about your transition?
Very brave.
What is going
on?
I
just wanted to show. What a real tranny looks like. You know, not a fake tranny like Bob tried to. Say it looked like. No, it's late. I'm tired. That's just a picture of my wife that I accidentally hit. It was in my phone. I thought, I'll just keep it.
She's a lovely woman.
Yep.
And
okay.
She's very sharp.
So Kenny, all the rumors I heard about you going to Grand Transition is actually you just wanting to be your wife.
Maybe.
Okay. All right, everybody. Let's get back to the dumpster fire. I just couldn't resist, Dr. Kenny.
Okay, well, so if I may, because I would like to get back to
John's
some important things that are being left out. Now, I quoted Surah 546. I could have actually came at this with a much more rough surah, and since we're not getting through, I think I will. Because other surahs not only are explicitly endorsing this as the word of Allah, but actually using it at the time of Muhammad to confirm Muhammad. Okay, so that means that it has to be trustworthy at the time of Muhammad, and if we have copies that are around before or at the time of Muhammad, that means we have copies of Muhammad's gospel. So listen to this. This is sort of
everything can be sourced back to Muhammad.
It is he who sent down to thee step by step in truth the book confirming that which went before it, and he sent down the law of Moses and the gospel before this as a guide to mankind, and he set down the criterion of judgment of right and wrong. So do you believe in Muhammad's day that the gospel was a guide to mankind and the criterion of judgment between right and wrong?
In what is it? In verse 256, there is no compulsion in religion. And also, I believe there's a verse in there too that talks about any Jews, Christians, any people of the book are also believers as well too, according to Islam. So Islam, it reads other scholarly books. So we recognize the divinity of the Bible. Where we differ is that everything can be sourced back to the prophet Jesus.
Okay, but you're still missing it as if that's like an even remotely relevant objection. It doesn't matter if, like I said, it could literally have been made up by Constantine in the 300s on a whim off a dream he got from some random Egyptian god, right? It doesn't matter for my argument. My argument is, very simply, that Muhammad in the 600s, 600 years after Jesus, said that at that point in time, it was a guidance for mankind and the criterion for right and wrong. Okay. He goes on further and says, if thou were in doubt as to what we revealed unto thee, in other words, if you don't believe I'm a prophet, then here's how you can prove it. Then ask those who have been reading the book from before thee. The truth hath indeed come to thee from thy Lord. So be in no wise of those in who doubt, and be not thou of those who deny the revelations of Allah, for wert thou of the losers. Do you not you know what I'm saying? Like, he's sitting here saying, look, you don't believe me? You don't think I'm a prophet? We got other books, bro. Go look at these other books. They're going to talk about me. Okay, that means at his time, they are worthy enough scripture for somebody who is saying he's revealing scripture to base his foundations off of. But we have copies from that time, and we know what they say. So again, why do you deny the words of Allah?
Are you saying that the Trinity is...
I have not mentioned anything about I am talking strictly about the gospel. Stay on the topic.
Are you saying the Trinity is divinely sourced?
I am talking strictly about the gospel. Stay on the topic, please.
I'm not denying that the gospel is divine.
Okay, so the gospel is the word of Allah. Can we just get the we got it on record. The gospel is the word of Allah. John 1 says, in the beginning was the word, and the word was with God, and the word was God. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It says elsewhere, if we get down to verse I think it's 14 or 18, one of the two, says the word became flesh and dwelt among us. So in other words, that word is Jesus. So Jesus was God according to the divine word of Allah you just concluded.
But that's not what the Quran says. There's no intermediary. There's also no intermediaries.
The gospel said. The Quran says the gospel is trustworthy.
God. Lam yulid wa lam yulad. God neither begots nor is begotten.
Then why does he affirm the Quran
as well too? So how could
so
God begotten a son?
All right, so I'm going to jump in real quick. So, who was the supposed intermediary between Allah and Muhammad?
There's no intermediary between Allah and Muhammad.
Dude, really? What about why? Okay, I'm pretty sure it's recognized.
Dude, it says there's Lam yulid wa lam yulad.
Are you saying that
Lam yulid
Gabriel
wa
is
lam
not the
yulad?
one
You know
who
what
was
that means?
supposed to have?
Dude, wow.
Okay, gentlemen, can people back me up? Is it not Gabriel who's supposed to have been the
Gabriel?
Muhammad never spoke to Allah.
Gabriel came down, blew into Mary's clothes, and
Allah,
went
because you guys
into
are
his
just
private.
misrepresenting my points.
No, I asked you specifically who was the intermediary between Allah and Muhammad. You said there was none when it's clearly
Because there's no what prophets is a
dude. You got swindled
in terms of like a co-equal.
You got swindled by a bunch of lying, taquilla swindling Muslims.
Okay, you guys are just misrepresenting what I'm saying because you don't even understand what the Quran says. You just pick verses that suit your narrative.
That has no clue
and then you're like, oh, I'm practicing
taquilla,
and you're just trying to tell me that there is no wisdom in the Bible. You think Muslims crucify Christians for
Well,
some
I'll tell you.
reason,
Here's another one.
and you're ignorant of.
I'll tell you what, bro. I'll give you another freebie how you make your prophet a liar.
He's not a liar.
Iger, could you mute or something?
Oh, here you go. Yeah, here comes.
Oh, sorry about that, guys.
All these red herrings now. All these red herring arguments. Yeah.
Dude, you don't know anything about your own religion. I think you're a troll. I think you might.
I would like to point out
I think you might be a troll. I don't think he knows anything about Islam.
Okay, hang on, guys.
Can someone?
Real quick, hang on, real quick. So,
is there a
which angel spoke to Muhammad? Is the search query? And there we go.
He's gonna say Muhammad.
Do you know the difference between the Son of God and the Messenger of God? You idiot.
Okay, now, real quick, we're going to go back to the point that we're going to share something else.
The messenger of God and the Son of God. Do you know what the difference is? Like, I don't even think you can comprehend that.
Dude, you're dumb as a bag of elephants.
Fuck you.
Dude, you have no clue what the hell you believe.
Okay, so you just agreed with CJ that the
what
Gospels. Hey, dude, shut your mouth. And I'll let you talk. Okay, just be quiet. Now, you just agreed with CJ that the Gospels were inspired from Allah, etc., right? Okay, so we're going to read Luke chapter 1. And the reason I was asking about the angel Gabriel going and speaking to Muhammad is that the angel Gabriel came to Mary. So let's read this, ladies and gentlemen, in relation to whether or not he is the Son of God. 6 months after Elizabeth had become pregnant, God sent the angel Gabriel to Nazareth, a city in Galilee. The angel went to a virgin promised in marriage to a descendant of David named Joseph. The virgin's name was Mary. Skip down a little bit further. The angel told her, "Do not be afraid, Mary. You have found favor with God. You will become pregnant, give birth to a son, and name him Jesus. He will be a great man. He will be called the Son of the Most High. The Lord will give him the throne of his ancestor David. Your son will be the king of Jacob's people forever, and his kingdom will never end." Mary asked the angel, "How can this be? I am a virgin." The angel answered her, "The Holy Spirit will come to you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. Therefore, the holy child developing inside you will be called the Son of God." I mean, I don't know how much more direct you have to be that he is the Son of God.
God neither begots nor is begotten. There is a Quran verse that says that.
Then you're denying the Quran. And by the way, I agree with you that the Quran says that, but what you should be concluding right now is the Quran is saying what you just said and also saying the Gospels can be trusted in Muhammad's time. which means the Quran is contradicting itself, right?
So
the Quran is speaking on one end as if the gospel is what it is talking about, as if it's what as if the gospel is the message it's trying to affirm. And then on the other end is directly contradicting the gospel. And by the way, if the gospel's wrong, the Quran is still wrong, because the Quran says that you prove the Quran by the gospel, right? And the Torah as well. So you have yourself in a conundrum.
So how could you prove the Quran by the gospel if the Quran contradicts the gospel?
That's exactly how. You just demonstrated it can't actually be proven by the gospel. It contradicts it, therefore it's not true. But see, what?
Well, how
could
you say that? Because
for the Muslim, you have a problem, right?
Is there like, so on one
It's
instance
actually
you're
very
saying,
simple logic. The Quran verifies the Bible, and the Bible condemns the Quran.
I'm not saying that the Quran doesn't verify the Bible. You're just missing
Well, if
the
it
point
does,
here.
then the Bible.
I'm just saying that
Quran,
the Bible is not directly sourced from the prophet Jesus.
It doesn't matter.
I think you're really misunderstanding that fundamental
I don't
point.
think that matters.
And
I
that
don't know why you think
if
that
you have
matters.
if you have contradictory scriptures like Lam Yulid wa Lam Yulad, and then you have scriptures from the gospel saying,
John,
Jesus is the Son of God.
John,
There's obviously, well, who's right? Someone's right.
Let's cancel everything except of the New Testament except for the Gospels.
Which has been all I wanted to do, by the way.
By the way, source directly to him. The sayings of Muhammad were taken and written down by other people other than Muhammad, right? In fact, your own
it was preserved. It was preserved.
Okay, well, we would say ours was preserved.
It was preserved.
So that's not an argument.
It was preserved.
Okay, it was preserved. Okay, ours was preserved too. So there you go.
Well, not.
I guess if you get to just claim it,
source,
ours was preserved too. Yes, it was from the source.
No.
Okay, so
yeah, absolutely.
Hey, one of you guys tell me.
Can you source everything back to Jesus?
Can you source everything back to Muhammad? Because I can tell you right now, you absolutely cannot. I'd love to see you try.
Okay.
Okay, real quick. So Jamie was wanting me to play this video, and Smokey, I think you were saying this is a good one.
You know what's funny about this video? Real quick. Sorry, I keep interrupting. Go ahead.
No, whoever knows what this video is about, let's give it.
Holes.
This video is literally Yasser Qadi
about the holes
telling me
in the narrative, John.
Yeah, this is Yasser Qadi, one of the most highly renowned Muslim scholars in the world, telling you that you can't source everything back to Muhammad.
All right, let's go.
Every single student of knowledge knows, who studies Ulum al-Quran, that the most difficult topics are ahruf al-qira'at, and the concept of ahruf and the reality of ahruf, and the relationship of the Uthmanic Mus'haf with the ahruf, and the preservation of the ahruf. Is it 1? Is it 3? Is it 7? And the relationship of the qira'at to the ahruf. This is a topic that when you're the beginning student of knowledge, you're like, what is all of this going on here? When you go a little bit more, you learn to simply memorize what your teachers say and regurgitate it out. And you don't fully comprehend. When you do a deep dive is when things get very, very awkward and difficult. And this isn't new. This is from the time of the Sahaba. This is not a joke, brothers and sisters.
That makes sense.
Caused confusion to somebody whom the Prophet said,
one of the
if you want to
most
listen to the
well-known
Quran directly,
scholars
listen to
of
Ubay.
this
Ubay is not some even average Sahabi. He is the Qari of the Quran. He is the master. He is who he is. And he goes, فَدَخَلْ فِي نَفْسِي شَكْ. What is all of this stuff? Again, this is you're asking us a very honest question. This is the first time I'm saying these things. Many people are aware who listen to my lectures that I've mentioned the crises that happened to me at Yale. This was the issue. That the issue of ahruf and preservation and qira'at and relationships between them, these are very, very difficult issues. And the most advanced of our scholars, they're not quite fully certain how to solve all of the unanswered questions in there. Here's the point. These issues should only be discussed amongst people who know what the qira'at are and who understand some of these questions that are being raised.
So is what you're saying the shak that came, or not the shak, but the crisis that you had was in relation to this question of the relationship between ahruf and the qira'at, basically?
No, the crisis I had wasn't that. The crisis I had was, that was what generated. But what was the crisis? The crisis was very simple. Traditional understandings of ahruf and qira'at cannot answer some of these pressing questions that are now being poked by our people by their academics outside of the faith tradition. You see, in a Muslim environment, there's always some respect that we have for the Quran. We should. In a Muslim environment, we'll press a little bit and then we'll say, okay, khalas, sami'na wa ata'na. And that's great, alhamdulillah. When you go to academia, they don't have that red line. And they're going to just, the famous story of the emperor with no clothes. They're going to just point out, no, that doesn't make any sense. Well, that's not true, and this and that. And they'll bring issues, which I'm not going to mention explicitly, that you know are true because they're in your own books. They're not inventing anything new. They'll bring you riwayat and they'll bring you athar, and then you add to that very well-known issues of, I don't even want to be explicit. Then you bring on top of that makhtutat, and it's very clear to you and to every single very advanced student and specialist that the standard narrative has holes in it. That's what I'm going to say. The standard narrative does not answer some very pressing questions. These are now well known within the Western Academy, that they're bringing forth issues. Their level of now knowledge is leaps and bounds above what it used to be, 100 years ago. What is happening in the last few years, it's not me anymore. It's the Western academics. These problems are now becoming mainstream. And by
Okay, real quick before we keep going, am I understanding correctly that he's saying basically Muslims, people outside of the Western academia, are kind of glossing over all these things, not even addressing them, acting like they don't exist?
Narratives,
and now they're
geography, historicity, lots of things are really not lining up. And they have 37 now, is it, CJ, and counting, different Arabic Qurans floating around out there that all claim to be official,
Well, and not even that too, but one of the things he's pointing out also, because you notice how he said, it's true because it's even in your own books. Well, one of the things he's pointing out, like, so for example, in some of the Sahih al-Bukhari, which Sahih, by the way, means that it's as strong as you can possibly get for a, what do you call that? Sorry, I'm losing.
Hadith.
Thank you, hadith. We have writings that, and by the way, I'm not debating the authenticity of these writings necessarily. They may or may not be authentic, but if they are authentic, they're pretty bad for the Muslim. We have writings that claim to be from Aisha, for example, right?
True.
We talk about Surah 33, and over 75% of it's missing. It's gone. According to her, it was missing
by a tame sheep soon after the Prophet's death.
And in fact, one of the reasons that the Shia have such a problem with the Sunni is because of the fact that they don't like Aisha, and they think that she, as well as others who were companions of Muhammad, actually schemed against Ali to make sure he was the fourth caliph after Muhammad rather than the first caliph after Muhammad. And this is part of the evidence they use. They say, look, I mean, Aisha is clearly a fraud, and some would even go as far as to say that she killed Muhammad. What's the point? Muslims themselves have long recognized that there are sources that claim to go all the way back to Muhammad, his own wife even, that say, hey, look, there's missing verses, and there's entire chapters that are gone. And here's another famous story, actually, for you. This one doesn't go back to Aisha, but it is back in Sahih al-Bukhari, and I believe it comes originally from Abu Bakr, which is Aisha's father. And it talks about how they were going to all of the different, it would be Uthman, because he's the one who collects the Quran. So he's one of the companions of Muhammad and one of the four caliphs. And they were going and they're, they're collecting all of the different things, and they want to obviously talk to the best reciters of the Quran, right? And so they went to the ones who Muhammad himself said were the best. And they couldn't agree on how many chapters were in it. Was it 117 surahs or was it 114 surahs? And eventually the one who was most trusted of Muhammad ended up losing, actually. And it is the other whose name I can't even remember, honestly, because the Arabic's got so many complicated names. But the 117 Surah Quran, I believe, is the one that ended up losing out. And I'd have to refresh myself because it's been a long time since I was reading up on Islam. I've been talking about the Old Testament for so long. But if anybody's got something they can add into sort of like get where I got anything not quite as detailed.
Yeah, actually, no, CJ made a good point. And there's a period of time prior to Uthman, who I believe Uthman was the first one who was called to essentially gather all of the remnants or pieces of the Quran together to inscribe them and write them. And he had quoted something along the lines of, could I do something that not even the prophet could do, or something along those lines. And he went and collected massive amounts of it. But immediately prior to this, or I believe in near history prior to it, the Quran was only really preserved through oral testimony. So it was each person's reciting of it. It was intended to be recited. In fact, actually, Muhammad himself commanded no one to write hadith about him. In fact, commanded that his sayings were not even supposed to ever be written down. So it was always intended to be a recited thing. And then there was a battle. You're going to think the name is funny, but you can Google it. The Battle of Yomama. And there, pretty much all of the Muslims that had retained it in their knowledge of the full recitation and memorized the Quran, pretty much all of them were wiped out, save, I believe, one. And it was his recitation that was trusted to fill in a lot of gaps. And Uthman was commanded to preserve the Quran by gathering it all together finally and transcribing it and writing it down. If you think I got anything off there, CJ, let me know.
No, it's 100% correct. And actually, it's I think
before we continue,
Arabic is a complicated language, so obviously there might be some things lost in translation between Arabic and English.
Do you
So
speak
obviously
Arabic?
there is some.
Whoa, hang
yeah,
on.
I can speak Arabic.
Hang on.
What's that?
Whoa, hang on, guys. I have to make a point here. So earlier, your argument, a fundamental component of your argument in relation to the New Testament being corrupted by the Catholic Church was the translation between languages. So are you now stating that translation between Arabic and other things can create holes and mistranslations and such, but that wouldn't have the same end outcome as
maybe
the
like
point you made about the
it wouldn't
Bible?
change into like the structure of the verses. It's just like there's some Qurans that have less it's less worded than, same thing with there's other Bibles that are less worded than others. So obviously there's always going to have that with new transcribed, especially different languages, especially a language like Arabic.
So you're saying that a very complicated language being translated couldn't have a high probability of words in meaning and intent being modified through errors in translation?
There is a truth into that, but I mean, like with the Bible, the question remains: is can it be sourced back to Jesus, right? Directly.
So again,
so why is it again? Why is there the contradiction?
If we suspend, dude, hang on. Let's suspend the entirety of the New Testament, except for the Gospels. Are the words that are being written down and the things that are being reiterated, are they the
I can sync those quicker. Go ahead, Maddox.
Are they the words of Jesus Christ being written down by?
Not every word, no.
Well, okay. Is every word in the Quran supposed
can it be
to
sourced that Jesus Christ preached the Trinity if he died?
That's not what I'm at. That's not what we're discussing right now. We're asking about whether or not the gospel.
Yes, Jesus Christ preached the Trinity, by the way. But go ahead.
Yeah, I know. But that's not the point. You're denying that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, correct?
He's not the Son of God, no. And it contradicts
so
that. And the Bible, the revelation in the Bible contradicts it. Contradicts the Quran.
But the Quran said, but Muhammad said that the Gospels were the words of Allah. Oh.
I'm not saying that they weren't. I'm just saying that in that instance, that's where.
So in that one instance, where the Quran and Muhammad contradicts himself.
Okay,
you're stating that it doesn't actually exist.
This guy is so dense. I'm having such a hard time with, dude. When Muhammad was talking about the Gospels that were given. What Gospels, like, do you think that Muhammad knew what the Gospels were? Did he know what the Gospels were when he was talking in this, the
he was illiterate.
century?
How could he read the Gospels?
Okay. Did he know what the gospel? Well, I would imagine that if he was a prophet of God, he would know what the Gospels are, right?
No, he doesn't, because it was.
He doesn't. Oh, he's ignorant
because he.
I guess somebody else must have revealed them Quran verses.
Wow. Yeah,
because he was illiterate. How could he read the Gospels?
Hang on.
He said, yeah. Actually, hold on. By the way, he's not actually illiterate. By the way, did you know that? In fact, I can pull up a reference if you like, where
how come he had to get his disciples to transcribe for him in camel bones and leaves?
Can I finish?
Okay.
At his deathbed, he asks for quill and paper so that he can write something that will then remain or will not leave his apostles or those that were following him, kind of like a final word and testimony. And get the reference if you want, where he himself asks for writing instruments to write something to them. So while he may have begun illiterate, he didn't stay illiterate.
Okay. Are you? Is this some sort of proof that?
So
he read
the point
Gospels now?
is, your prophet said these Gospels that the Christians have were given by Allah, because we only had one set of Gospels.
He also
he's only
made
referring to
claims
one set of
about the.
Okay,
the
is
womb,
everything? Hold
the
on,
womb?
dude. You're making your prophet and your God a liar. Everything that came out of Muhammad's mouth was the word of Allah. And Allah is verifying that what the Christians have in their possession was given by him. That over there, the Gospels, you know, the Gospels, everyone knows what we're talking about when we say the Gospels, the thing they have. Yeah, I gave it to them. Okay, so you're making your own God a liar right now. You're actually in the process of throwing yourself into Muslim hell, because you're actually committing grave blasphemy against Allah by making both him and his prophet a liar, by actually saying this thing that they themselves verified should not be trusted. You're a degenerate and a fraud of your faith.
Okay, so lam yulid wa lam yulad. How come God is neither begotten nor begotten?
Why are you running? Why don't you answer what I just said?
Don't you realize, too, when you quote that verse, you're only proving that the Quran contradicts itself? Because if you can't provide an answer for the verses of the Quran we're providing, all you're doing is quoting another verse. You literally are saying, hey, this verse directly refutes the verses you're quoting. Okay, well, if you're saying a verse...
Do you guys have proof that Muhammad read all the gospel and he could discern which is
okay,
true
are
and
the
which is
words
not?
of Muhammad the words of Allah, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, so if then it would be Allah getting it wrong, dipshit. Why do you not get that?
Allah
You're
got
making
the
your God
what?
ignorant. Okay, your God's
So Allah got
and didn't know what the
Trinity
Gospels
wrong?
were, and he claimed to have sent them, but he had no clue what was in them or what they said. Are you some sort of actual idiot, or are you a troll? Seriously.
Well, you're just mad because you still haven't addressed my point of why would the Quran say God is neither begotten nor begotten?
Because it contradicts itself.
For your position,
How does that
Jesus
contradict
the messenger
itself?
of Allah?
Oh,
It doesn't make any sense.
We have been through this, John.
I'm
You're
saying,
not
like,
even
well, how
trying.
could you
You're
have
not
the
even trying.
gospel
John,
that was written by John 100 years after Jesus' death?
You need to listen, okay? Because you're
Still
not
don't answer
listening,
that
and it's
question.
obvious, okay? So
It's
we're
not
going to try
directly
this again.
sourced back.
We're going to try this again, okay? You need to actually listen, because we have addressed this at least 10 or 12 different times. Okay, you asked.
You
how this
didn't really address it.
I'm about to address it yet again. Okay.
No.
Yeah. Yes, I am. All right. Now, shut up, please. Okay. Really quick. The Quran affirms that the gospel of Muhammad's time is the word of Allah, and the Quran also says that God neither begots nor is begotten. But the gospel of Muhammad's time says that the Son of God was, of course, eternally begotten. So the Quran there is contradicting itself. It is saying this text is my words, and this text is saying things which are contradicted by this text, which he's also saying is my words. Those are contradictory.
Can you point? So obviously, one of the books is contradictory. So a book that is directly sourced from Muhammad,
that is not true.
Less likely to have error as opposed to one that where scriptures were written in the Bible 100 years after Jesus' death?
Right,
which
so
one is most likely to be from the true source?
The latest book of the Bible was Revelation. According
it's
to
not all divinely. One document is not divinely inspired, and the other one is.
Right, the Quran is not divinely inspired. That's correct.
Why?
I've just shown you.
You just gave it credence.
It's contradictory.
You just gave it credence.
It's literally contradictory.
You just gave it credence, though.
How is that? Okay, you haven't addressed the contradiction. Okay,
it's just like you're trying to force me into this like false binary. It's really
not
unnecessary.
a false binary. It's a binary that is explicitly created by your scriptures, and you're tap dancing around it, my friend. And I'm sorry, but you need to understand that you just simply don't get the arguments, and you're being led astray by a dangerous and disgusting cult. Okay.
You don't get the
Again,
argument
I will
because
reiterate.
obviously,
Again, I will
why
reiterate.
would the scriptures? So
Go
you're
ahead.
saying that the Quran saying that the gospel is a divine document justifies the Trinitarian doctrine. Is that correct?
It bare minimum justifies the direct words. And if here's the thing, if you're going to take that as the Trinitarian, that's on you, right? If the direct words of the Bible
So the
sound
Quran
like the
says
Trinity to you,
that God
then I
was
guess that's
begotten.
what I'm saying. But
Does the
bare
Quran say
minimum,
that God has
it
been
means
begotten
the
or not?
direct words of the gospel are affirmed by Allah.
Okay. So if
Dude,
that's true, then
John,
I guess
John, stop asking dumbass
divinely
questions
inspired the
about
Trinitarian doctrine. Is that
or
correct?
begotten.
I guess
If
it is, according
I
to the Quran.
Holy crap, dude!
Dude,
So how did
am I on freaking mute right
Muhammad
now? What's
reveal
going
the
on here?
gospel?
Muhammad didn't reveal the gospel. Allah revealed the gospel. Muhammad was not born yet, obviously.
Well, how did Muhammad read the gospel? That's what I'm saying.
Have to read the gospel. He got revelation from Allah.
Okay.
Dude, the Quran is the eternal word of Allah. It's not the opinions of Muhammad.
Okay.
According to your
So
religion, that's what it is.
It's
Is it not?
contradictory when it comes to the Quran, but not the Bible. Oh, okay, I get it.
Yes, the Quran is contradictory because the Quran is claiming to be the eternal word of God. I don't understand how you don't get this. The
Well,
eternal word of
I don't
God means
understand
that God
how
actually
you
had
think-
it in eternity, right? So it doesn't matter if Muhammad knew how to read the gospel or not. It doesn't matter.
I don't understand how you think that the Bible is saying that the Trinitarian doctrine is true, is somehow validating, like the Quran is validating the Trinitarian doctrine. When
the Quran validates
there's
the
source,
gospel,
there's
and the
source
gospel
from the
says
Quran
Jesus is God, and
that
the
says that the Bible is not 100% true. It's not 100%
I didn't say the
true
Bible
if
100%
it
true. I'm talking
contradicts it.
specifically about. See, you're not even representing the arguments correctly, dude. First off, we're talking
What the fuck
specifically
are you
about
even
the
talking
gospel.
about, man?
Okay, disregard all
He
62
already
books.
called
We're
his God
talking
a liar.
only about the gospel. Okay, so that's 4
The
books.
Trinitarian doctrine is a lie.
Okay, not relevant. 4 books. Okay, so disregard all other 62. In those
I don't
4
know,
books,
like what
we hear that he's the Son of God. Okay, we hear if
That's a
you don't
lie.
believe that I am, you will die on your die in your sins. We hear my Lord and my God coming from Thomas. We hear in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Okay, all of those are found in those 4 books, and those 4 books are affirmed in your Quran at the time of Muhammad when we know what they said. If you're going to say, okay, but elsewhere in the Quran,
I'm not saying it doesn't affirm it. I think what you're missing is it's not 100% divinely inspired like the Quran, which is
That's not
why
what
we
the
hold
Quran
the
says.
Quran up in more value than the Bible when it comes
That's not
to
what the Quran says.
a divine source.
That's
not
not
saying
what the
there's
Quran
more.
says. And how did
I think you're missing that point. You're missing.
Okay, guys,
You're missing
we're going to take a quick
that
time
tidbit
out.
right there,
Gentlemen,
that
we're gonna
nuance,
take a time
and
out
it's
on
just really frustrating because you're trying
Holy
to
crap! Is
make it
nobody
into this
listening
like
when I'm talking? What the flying F is going on here? We're going to take a quick break on this topic because we've been going round and round in circles for a while. And Danny has joined us and been being very quiet for the last 15 minutes. So, Danny, what's up, man? How you doing? Welcome to the stream.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm fine with just listening. I was, bored, I guess.
Okay. And then I think Iger's got something going on. What are you saying, Iger? I saw you talking.
Oh man, no, I'm gonna do the Book of Revelations premiere. It's an animated version that I found online, not 15 minutes, but I mean, you got the show here, and it's pretty hit, bro. Oh, also, man, I mean, I did hear about the man. I never looked into it. I wish I would have, because maybe the information is harder to find now. But there was like this some Jesuit guy that deflected. Apparently, he was going around saying that the Jesuits, secret societies of the Vatican, I should say, made the whole Islam thing. That way they can that way the Vatican can get control over Jerusalem. Other Christians.
Holy actual crap, Iger. Is there a conspiracy?
But I'm almost done.
theory
Let me
don't
finish.
believe?
There's some books written about this if you want to look them up.
Yeah, there's books, ladies.
Yeah, but check them out. It's
There's
interesting,
books
anyways,
about
whether you think it's true or not. But supposedly, Islam was created by the secret societies of the Vatican That way they can overthrow all the actual Christian churches, you know, the real Christian churches that had nothing to do with the Pope, the Vatican, the whole Babylonian corrupt system. So they created Islam.
Well,
way
that makes no sense.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
All
I
right,
think it's the
whatever.
other way around, really. It's like
Either
the
way,
Catholic Church really
there's an
despised
interesting
Islam.
conspiracy theory, I guess you could call it, regarding that, where Islam was created by the Vatican, the little churches out of Jerusalem.
Oh,
so I thought it was
just
pretty interesting.
Just outstanding.
That's how the devil always tries to corrupt divine scripture. So,
all right, okay. Before we get back into the dumpster fire, we're gonna finish up this video. It's almost done. Jamie,
I don't know. I'm really done with beating a dead horse there about divine document.
You're the dead horse.
You're beating a dead horse. You don't understand what I'm
and
saying, or you
raping
just
a toddler.
pretend you don't understand what I'm saying.
Are not aware, by and large, of what's going on in the Western side of things, and they're not answering those questions in a manner that it needs to be answered.
Then Muhammad Hijab has him on again, and this has to be probably the most damaging podcast, I think, to date in regards to the Durat and the destruction it caused. He goes on to Muhammad Hijab's platform and starts giving the preservation of the Quran question. You know, ever since that podcast, subhanAllah, those of us who are involved in da'wah, like myself specifically, I'll talk from my own experience, the amount of comments I get from Christians, from people who are against Islam and they want to sow seeds of doubts in the minds of Muslims, over and over and over again, they use speech and quotes from Yasser Qadhi from Muhammad Hijab's podcast to try and do that. It's like every single day on social media. The reason I embraced Islam fundamentally in the very beginning was because I saw that the Bible wasn't preserved. I wanted to know, did Allah give us a preserved scripture? And when I found the Quran was clearly the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, clearly it has been preserved, clearly no doubt about it. That has been like the main talking point when I give da'wah to people, to Christians specifically. So for that podcast to put a question mark on that for people, I mean, the damage it caused, subhanAllah, it's beyond words. You know, if you can't internalize and understand how horrible of a thing that happened, then I can't explain it to you. You have to be so careful even talking about this topic because it's been something that has been so weaponized by the kuffar.
Amen.
Hey, John, can I ask you a couple questions quick?
Sure.
Who was Jesus' father?
Jesus' father?
Yeah.
I believe that the carpenter, John, or no. Sorry, he was sorry. It is he was of a virgin birth.
And then in the Quran, how did that happen? How was Jesus?
Just basically God let there be Jesus born in Mary, and so he let it be.
No. In the Quran, it says that the angel Gabriel came down, blew into Mary's garments, and his breath went into her privates, and that's how she got pregnant. What miracles does the Quran say that Jesus did?
So, like, Jesus's death wasn't Jesus.
No, what miracles? I know Allah made it seem like it appeared as though Jesus died on the cross and all the disciples died preaching Jesus died and rose again. That doesn't make sense. But what in the Quran, what miracles did Jesus do?
I believe
you don't know. I don't think you're a Muslim. I don't think you're a Muslim.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, I gotta think about it.
He doesn't know how
point.
Jesus was born. He doesn't know what miracles he did. Jesus made a bird out of mud in Islam and blew into it and it flew away.
That makes him a
okay.
creator.
So how come I know more about Jesus in the Quran than you do? Like I honestly don't think you're even a Muslim.
I'm not versed in that. Sorry.
You got swindled, dude. You got swindled.
So, John, how long have you been a Muslim? Are you a recent convert?
Wait, you don't understand the importance of Jesus being able to create? You don't understand the importance of that in your own freaking religion, really?
Yeah,
And
Jesus doesn't have to be the Son of God to create, to do miracles.
Who's the only one that can create?
To do miracles, and that is bestowed upon God.
Miracles, but he created something. Jesus himself created something, right?
Yeah, we create things too. Does that mean we're sons of gods too?
Can you create life?
Yeah. So does that mean I'm son of God now?
Wow! Holy crap! This guy's really deluded.
I can create life. Yeah, we can all create life. So that means we're sons of gods now.
How can you create life?
Who was a better?
You can ejaculate into a prostitute you rented for 3 days because apparently.
Yeah, that's creating life.
That's not creating life. That's abiding by natural processes.
No, that's creating life, you dipshit.
Do you agree with child marriage?
I mean, if that's creating life, then what's so cool about God? Like, if we can do it.
Yeah, what's special about Jesus Christ?
So creating a bird out of mud and making it alive, that's just nothing special to you, I guess, right?
I mean, honestly, though, like, if he's actually under the impression that we create life, I mean, like, who cares about God? Like, we can do it.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, absolutely. I guess he just gave a good defeater to not believe in God at all. Yay, atheist.
I mean, Muhammad was he was a warlord. Does that make him the son of God? He was really good at war. Does that mean he's the son of God or a god of war? No.
What the hell are you talking about?
Okay, so John, were you raised a Muslim or are you a Muslim convert?
Convert or revert, I guess.
So you were raised as one, or you were not raised as one?
Revert. We're all naturally Muslim.
Right. Mm-hmm. How long ago? How long ago was your reversion back to being a Muslim?
Isn't it very convenient for our apologetics that they already use the word reversion just to like call themselves? I don't know. Anyways, sorry.
So, John, how long ago did you revert back to being a Muslim?
Sorry, what was that?
How long ago did you revert back to being a Muslim?
Over a year and a half, 2 years.
Okay. And have you actually, well, prior to that, what was your religious affiliation, if any?
I guess you could say I grew up secular, but I guess it'd be Christian, be like Catholic.
Okay, so did you, while you were brought up basically secular, do you actually think that you studied the Bible, Christian doctrine, or really anything about the scriptures prior to your conversion?
I definitely studied scripture, and I still study it actually.
Okay, but earlier when I asked you how much you read the Bible, you said some of it, but not all of it. But now you say that you studied scripture.
I did, yeah. That's still consistent with some of it.
Okay, so do you understand justification, sanctification, glorification?
Okay, these are just red herrings now. Okay.
No, those
you're getting into semantics now. Like, well, how much of the Bible did you read? Did you read this much? Did you read? Like, do you want me to give you like a
John,
number?
Honestly, dude,
like, maybe get back to you on that. Like, these are just disingenuous questions.
Okay, do you think that some core doctrines are red herrings?
Yeah.
You think that the core doctrines, the absolute core doctrines of Christianity, you think they're red herrings?
Absolutely, yes. I disagree with it axiomatically, yes.
So do you even know what they are?
Well, you have the 10 Commandments.
No. I asked about justification, sanctification, glorification. Do you understand what they are? Yes or no?
Yeah, the 10 Commandments.
No.
This guy's a freaking troll, dude. You're a joke. Don't lie.
Get him out of here.
Don't lie. He can continue to be here. You can keep being here, dude.
You still haven't proven the Trinity to be true.
Dude, this has nothing to do with the question I just asked you.
You know what's funny is David Wood actually made a video once talking about how it doesn't matter how much evidence you present a Muslim because they'll always revert back to some question that's not actually relevant to your conversation. And he makes like a whole 19-minute joke out of it, and it's honestly hilarious. You guys should check it out.
What religion, Christianity or Islam, has brought a better blessing to the world?
Actually, vaccines came from the Islamic world.
Oh, then definitely stay away from it. Stay away from it. No, hey, true story, man. I tried reading the Quran once, like 20 years ago, and like within the first few pages, it talks so bad about Christianity. I was like, man, there's no way that this can be right. So I stopped reading. I got through maybe like, I don't know, 5 or 6 pages of it. It was crazy. But anyways, guys, I got a little premiere going on. Probably have like 2-3 people there. But God bless y'all. I hope y'all have a good night. Even you, John, I hope God blesses you and you have a great night and stay safe. Stay away from those corporate drugs, bro. They're no good for you, bro. All right. God bless y'all. Have a good night.
Good night.
Yeah, just for the record, I actually just looked it up, and that's not true. It came from China.
Yes, it is. It was
looking at it right now.
First discovered by an English lady who was in Turkey when they injected smallpox into people.
Yeah, that was 700 years after China had figured it out. I'm literally looking at it right now.
And that
So it
had
came
nothing
from-
to do with vaccines. Have nothing to do with the overall good that Islam or Christianity has done.
Well, you could
for
say
the
that
world.
mathematics came from we got it from the Egyptians and the Zoroastrians.
Dude, they discovered tablets from like the Sumerians with geometry recently. So, and I mean, you're trying to claim that Muslims came up with math?
The Muslims perfected it. They wouldn't say invented it. There was a time where there were mathematicians in the Muslim world, yes.
Well, yeah, there was mathematicians in multiple civilizations, and different ones brought different facets of things to the equation. But are you suggesting that the Greeks weren't doing math way like in BC era?
In the what?
Before Christ.
How about
that
Jesus?
that would invalidate basically all religion. Like, oh, I guess all religion they're doing math. So
Greeks
that
doing
would
math
be like an atheist
invalidates
argument.
all religion. That is the basest take I've ever heard in my entire life. Are you a god, sir? Can I worship you? That was freaking amazing. Oh my goodness, this is ridiculous. I don't have time for this, honestly. I'm out of here.
The 12 disciples was just a guess too.
Well, I mean, they're practicing math before Christianity, so that must discredit Christianity now, does it?
Nobody made that point.
Well, that was the insinuation.
There's no way there's someone
You're trying to do that
who
insinuation with
actually
Islam.
exists and operates in the real world and is actually this stupid. Like, this is now way
You just disagree with my
over
viewpoints,
the
and
line.
you're attributing intelligence when you haven't
Seriously.
properly refuted my arguments.
Seriously, man.
Yeah,
We
you
were
just,
having
you just hate. You're just
Hold on.
Islamophobic. That's all you are.
You're either a troll or you are the most, and I do mean the most retarded man, not even just Muslim man, I've ever personally conversed with. I mean, except for save the guy with extreme Down syndrome when I was in grade school that I met. But you would be, next to him, basically the most.
So we're resorting to
mentally
ad hom.
debilitated.
So
no,
we're
dude.
resorting to
Okay,
ad hom
no, it's
character
not an ad
attacks now,
hom. I know
because you don't
you're-
really have
I-
any
I-
constructive argument now.
Excuse me, I'm not done. Now
Well,
I'll correct
you're
you on
attacking me.
Well, now I'll correct you
your
on that.
character. You don't expect me to defend
Well,
myself.
Show me in
now I'll
scripture
correct-
where
Screw you.
Jesus said, "I am God worship."
Shut up, Jamie.
Screw you.
Now I'll
Screw
correct you
you.
on what an ad hom is, because now you're going to be desperate to not let me talk, because I'm going to embarrass you again. Okay, that's not an ad hom. You know what it is?
You
It's a
are doing an ad hom
conclusion to
because
a
you are doing
series-
character.
Excuse me. This is a conclusion to a series of observations and evidences that you yourself have chosen to portray this evening. You have called your prophet as well as your God liars. You have not caught on
No,
to
I
your
haven't.
failures in history, and you know nothing about your own religion. And you actually know
Because
nothing about the
I could.
Bible either. You're one of the more ignorant interlocutors I've ever interacted with.
Okay,
And
so
I've
why does
had
this
some
guy
dumb
keep to
atheists.
just?
Okay.
Why
Well,
does he keep doing a
that's fine.
character
I
assassination?
guess it's not a character assassination, dude. It's a conclusion.
Yes, it is.
It's a conclusion.
Okay, Smokey, let me know when you're done. And
I'm
John,
done.
if you,
It's fine.
okay,
I'll yield.
okay,
He's
okay.
gonna keep spurging if I don't, because he seems to be that type.
Well,
of
you're the one
attitude.
spurging.
Well, you won't let someone finish a statement.
Yeah, you're just you don't have any other arguments.
That
You're just
sounds like
character
you lack in
assassination because you don't have any
character. Well, it
constructive
sounds like
arguments.
you lack in character.
And then
by
yeah,
not
well, no,
allowing me
you're
to
the one
finish.
lacking.
We'll
No,
see.
you.
I have evidence to support you being a degenerate.
I do have
trash
evidence
troll.
too.
Okay.
You just won't accept
Name
it.
Name it.
That Muhammad is the divinely sourced scripture
Okay. Well, now he's just trolling. Now. I think this is just a big joke.
that can be sourced back to the messenger, whereas the Bible it can't.
Do you agree with child marriage?
Sure. Let's go to Aisha. Why not?
That's not compulsory in Islam. No.
Oh, yeah.
Do you agree with it? Like, was that good
No.
that Muhammad married a 6-year-old?
Yeah, it doesn't mean it's compulsory.
Is that good though?
Can you point in the Quran that says
Yeah.
that,
Actually, aren't Islam supposed to emulate their prophet in life and practice?
I think we should talk about how preservation works and why saying the Quran is word for word given from Allah is just impossible to defend. Why it's actually a better way to preserve a text by having multiple streams and versions of it coming down through history.
Well, I'll give a quick argument, Jamie, to your benefit. I doubt he'll be able to follow along, but I'll do this for the sake of the audience as well. So Uthman, Abu Bakr, many of the caliphs were various different caliphs over different generations were tasked with collecting the Quran from its various bits and pieces and kind of codifying it. And they had to take mass chunks of it and burn it and destroy it that didn't match up with the portions that they had collected and put together and wanted to preserve. So, and also actually a whole bunch of Qurans were even just recently, about 100 years ago in 1920s, I think, was sunk in the bottom of the Nile because they were in contradiction with the newly codified Quran back then, which was the Hafs interpretation or Hafs recitation, I should say, actually. Recitation is the correct word. So there's a whole bunch of Quran that even by their own history was admitted to have been destroyed. In fact, even there's a quote, like we said earlier, about the tame sheep coming in and eating passages of Quran, particularly the passages of stoning and the passages of breastfeeding. Those apparently went missing and were eaten by a tame sheep. Now, these were the word of Allah. And now Allah also says that he promises that he will protect his words, which means if something was destroyed by either Uthman or Abu Bakr or heck, even the tame sheep, that means it wasn't the words of Allah. It's because he didn't preserve it and he promised that he would, which means that Muhammad actually was a failed false prophet who was actually inserting and making up sayings and making up words for Allah. This is also verified by his manner of death, as he is quoted to have said from Allah that if Muhammad was to add anything or create or synthesize any revelation, that he would sever his aorta. And later on at the Battle of Khaybar, after the battle was won, Muhammad, in his infinite stupidity, decided to accept a dinner invitation to one of the women of the families that he had just brutally slaughtered, and she poisoned his food. And then began a series of a slow and painful death until close to the end of his death, he is quoted in a hadith, I believe it's Bukhari, as saying to Aisha, Aisha, it feels as if my aorta is being severed. And funny enough, Allah said, if you ever add or synthesize any Quran or add anything to my sayings, I will sever your aorta. And here we have Muhammad quoted by Aisha, his child bride, that he indeed said he was dying from the poison he ate at Khaybar, feeling that his aorta was being severed. So therefore, Muhammad, in his own words, by his own degenerate false god, verifying that he is a false prophet that fabricated a whole bunch of sayings, so you can't trust a damn thing that comes from your book, and you can't even begin to claim about things being sourced to our records and our original sources when you yourself has a complete and utter failure of a source even to God himself. Muhammad himself had satanic verses where he himself allowed to speak verses given to him by Satan that he himself admits were the case when he said that people should worship the wife and sister, wife and daughter of Allah, the moon god of the pagans that lived in Petra at the time. So you have a complete and utter gigantic historical and philosophical failure of your religion on your hands. And even by your prophet's own admission in his own sayings, he was a fake and a fraud, and he died, and he's now burning in the deepest pits of hell. And with that, I'll yield.
Well, I have to say that Muhammad was a unifier in the Arab peninsula when it came to destroying idols that were worshipped by the early pagans. And despite, his offerings to be a leader by these Arab tribes or Arab pagans, he still declined and lived by the word of God. He was a successful warlord for the
when
time.
he went around and gave people the choice of death or conversion, you're saying that was him turning down power?
There, chapter 2, verse 256. There is no compulsion in religion.
Hey, so John, what's your relationship to Carol Claw? Or sorry, Claire Claw?
Sorry, what?
What's your interactions with Claire Claw?
I no longer associate with Claire Claw. She calls herself a secularist, and she hates the notion of a monotheistic God. So I guess she's agnostic. So I guess we differ on that. There's some other things too that we separated over. It's a long story, but
okay.
Yeah.
So it's your position that there is no compulsion in Islam?
It says chapter 2, verse 256. Yes, and there's also a verse that talks about the Christians and the Jews are also believers as well.
And the worst of all people.
No.
Yeah, it does.
Where?
Christians that don't agree with what Muhammad said in the Quran are viewed as the worst of all people.
Oh, that reject everything? Yeah.
Will reject Muhammad's teachings.
Yeah, because he was a prophet of God. If you reject Muhammad, yeah, that is reprehensible. Yes.
So that's us. We're the worst.
Yes, you are. By your conduct, yes, I can
all
tell.
the missionaries
But
going
we
to
forgive you, and you can still practice your religion. You just have to pay a jizya.
Pagame.
And if you don't pay the jizya, what happens to you?
Then you don't get protection from the Muslim army. It's basically a tax for protection.
Well, I know what it's for. I'm saying if you refuse, they executed people. Or
It's
you had
not
to
necessarily in the
convert
Quran
to
to execute people like that. And it's not necessarily compulsory per se, but it was just in the time that was written that it is one of the stipulations that Christians can either have the free will to go or not. Nowadays, we live in peacetime, so obviously it's kind of a silly notion.
Who lives in peace? There's no
The
peace
secular
in
world.
Islamic countries whatsoever.
Like in Pakistan, yes, I agree that there is some backwards things going on, and they kind of go off in their own world, and very un-Islamic things. But I mean, you could say the same for Christian world too.
Not even close. Nothing
Yeah.
even similar. Nothing
No,
similar.
they're not all the same. Are you saying all Muslim countries are the same? That's ignorant of you to say.
No, the
Yeah.
overall majority, the fruit of Islam, what it's done for our world is bad. It's not good.
How is it bad?
All the wars, like, look at
Okay, so you can say
history.
the same thing about Christianity.
No,
What about all the wars? What about all
the Crusades,
the
when
crusade? Well, you're not the crusade.
Muslims were trying to kill everybody.
That's not true.
Oh, okay. How many wars did Muhammad do? How many wars?
How many
Yeah,
wars did U.S. do? How many wars were there in
U.S.
medieval Europe? How many how did
Does the
you have
United
expanding?
States claim to
How
be
did you have
operating
expanding
under the power
empires off of?
does the United States operate from the perspective that we are somehow being directed by Allah to go out and fight war?
Would they have their own doctrine and say they want to spread democracy? How'd
But
that work out?
How does any?
How did democracy work out?
We're talking about religion
in
right
Afghanistan.
now. We're not talking about what empires have done. We're talking about from a religious perspective. Are you suggesting the United States is operating under the auspice of being directed by Allah to go and conquer places?
By the director of God? There was one time, maybe, but not, post World War II.
When before World War II?
Well, I'd say they didn't really have really much of an empire before World War II.
Okay, so they weren't doing it before World War II, and they weren't doing it after World War II, so they weren't doing it at all.
Yeah, they were a secular society.
Okay,
that
so
believed in democracy.
Okay, so then
and tried
why
to
did
spread
you-
it into Islamic worlds and failed
So
miserably.
why did you bring up the comparison between the Muslim countries and empires versus the United States? You're the one that brought up the United States. with the
Because
comparison. You made the comparison.
well, not the Crusades, the medieval wars between the denomination of church.
Dude,
yeah,
why were the
people
Crusades
who
done?
fought each
Why were the-
other
why were
in
the
different
Crusades done?
denominations for different interpretations and different texts of
What
the Bible.
What had the
for
Muslims
over
done?
100 years.
Do you like just keep
and
talking, or
Europeans
you, like,
became
listen?
so good at fighting.
Okay, guys, is my microphone not coming through?
Why am I being?
Guys, is my microphone not coming through?
Yeah, your mic's coming through fine. He's just a degenerate a-hole with a bunch of idiotic points. Sorry, Maddox. Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah, I'm making points, undermining your.
Okay, dude, if you can't shut up while other people are talking, I mean, I've let you be in here for like 2.5 hours at this point. Like, seriously, dude. If you can't shut up and allow back and forth and you just keep
He's
talking,
a dumb
we're
kid,
done.
Maddox. He's a dumb kid. He has no clue what the hell he's talking about.
Yeah, I know what I'm talking about. I understand history.
Okay, really? So what was the origination of the Crusades?
The origination of the Crusades, though, there is one theory that it was the Catholic Church pursuing early
not a
Christians.
theory, that's a lie. That's a lie.
And then there's
That's a
also
lie.
the Islamic.
That's a lie. That's
Okay,
a lie.
John, let's try again. What actions had been executed by the Muslims prior to the first crusade?
Okay, I'm not gonna stay on here if you keep cutting me out. It just seems like you guys are really triggered by what I'm saying, and I'm not lying.
Okay, I'm not triggered. I'm done with him.
What an asshole.
He's kicked. He's done.
Liar like your prophet. Liar and a coward like your prophet.
I mean, that stuff is just mind blowing. Like, everybody knows that it's quote unquote studied history.
By the way, when he said Muhammad,
How's that democracy working out for you, boys?
Do you want to catch it? If he ever said Muhammad, did he say peace be upon him afterwards or no? Do you want to catch it?
I
wasn't
never,
listening.
I never heard
He's
that
not
one.
Islamic.
Not once. Not once.
What a shithead.
Well, the thing, like, if he's actually studied history,
I'm
he would
pretending to
know-
be Bruce here tonight. I'm sitting here munching on pistachios, by the way.
You're talking about Bruce.
Has to be a ham sandwich.
Okay. So, by the way, speaking of random people, whatever happened to what's his face? Brad. Was it Brad? Who was the guy that was calling the manatee or the walrus or whatever?
Brett.
Brett. Yeah. Whatever happened to him?
That individual situation.
He got promoted for porn. He got promoted because of his porn bombing.
No, he's
right?
just playing Fallout 4 with his friends and messing around and stuff these days.
What happened to God Tube Radio?
We kind of killed him a little bit.
I
He's apparently writing a memoir with me and Kat and Will and a bunch of other people on it or something. I don't know.
What?
Wow.
A memoir? Is he dying?
By the way, so just for fun,
there would be worse tragedies. So, you know.
So I'm going to read real quick here. So the angel Gabriel is considered the most important of all the angels in Islam. The angel Gabriel's main responsibility is to communicate the words of Allah to his prophets. It is Gabriel, who revealed the Quran to the Prophet Muhammad. Didn't that clown show say that wasn't what happened?
I don't think so.
No, because I asked him about that specifically. He said that he was only there for a minute, but he was not the intermediary between Allah. It was the words were actually revealed directly by Allah to Muhammad, is what he said.
Yeah, I think he put his head in a hat or something and looked at a rock. Oh wait, that's
the wrong cult.
Yeah, I don't even understand what the hell just happened. So that was well, I did title this correctly, I guess, in the thumbnail when I said it's guaranteed to be a dumpster fire. So
it was either a troll or completely retarded. It's one or the other.
I think the kid thing was the right idea there. Maybe, you know, he just doesn't know that much or whatever.
Well, I kind of said that because Christian Prince always calls them kids when they're not honest and they ignore arguments. And
well, you know that clip. The clip, I don't know. You guys not recognize that clip? That was a big deal. David Wood made a big deal about it. The point is, like, preservation is just the whole narrative that every Muslim.
We all got exercise cracking on Islam tonight. It was kind of nice in that regard.
Well, I know it was a bloodbath. Everybody wanted a peace.
Well, he answered every point with a question. He tried to, and not even remotely relevant questions either. Like when I was asking him, okay, justification, sanctification, glorification, he's like, well, there's the 10 Commandments. What does that have to do with the core principles of Christianity?
Smokey, that was an example of someone who doesn't get intrinsic and extrinsic arguments. I don't think he just couldn't think that way. It was clear to me. You know, he didn't get that we're critiquing his religion from what its own religion says, and all he could think was, but the
Quran
he made his
prophet and a god a liar multiple times.
Yeah, he didn't realize it. All he could do is see, that's why people don't listen to the arguments; they just listen to the claims. Well, I know the Quran is divinely inspired, so it can't be contradictory in that. And so, you just wouldn't get that. You didn't understand we were intrinsic. We were doing an internal critique is what I meant. Sorry.
What really got me is he did not grasp the point that I was making about because his initial claim was the Trinity is false because the Catholic Church is the one that manipulated, modified, inserted the Trinity doctrine into the Bible over the years. And then it's like he did not grasp the point I was making about the Dead Sea Scrolls. It was completely going over his head. The things you're claiming and when at least the insertion of this happened was after the origination of the Dead Sea Scrolls. So,
the Dead Sea Scrolls are Old Testament, but that you could still make the case for divinity of a second figure. And that's what I tried to nip in the bud too. I was saying you can look at the early church fathers before the Catholic Church and what they quoted from the scriptures, so we can verify its veracity. You can look at the many streams of manuscripts. That's where I wanted to go with it, was show them that there's all these. It's actually a better form of preservation to have multiple streams of manuscripts all over the place, so you can piece it all together to know what the original text said. They don't have that. You want to say the Quran, which is totally ridiculous and unverifiable, that it's directly word for word preserved, which is insane and not true, because they don't have textual criticism for the last 200 years like we have. and ours is actually, and if you look at it, it's actually a good thing in a lot of ways. The reasonable stuff anyways. And then, they don't have that. They're just starting to get that. And it turns out that's in that video, the guy says at the end, he's distraught. He just says, I believe Islam because it's preserved. It's like, that's unsustainable.
Okay, this guy's definitely a troll. He says the early Crusades were about suppressing early Christian messages about the oneness of God.
What a
Yeah.
complete and utter.
Is that SFB mod? No, I'm
No,
just
that
joking,
was.
man.
Wow. Okay.
I'm just teasing. I don't even know what he is.
He's
He
trolling now because he could have Googled it. Like now, it's just definitely trolling.
Oh, is it this kid that was in here?
He's in the
Yeah,
side chat.
Yeah. I just shared. You're probably on your phone. You probably didn't see it. Yeah, I shared it. That was it. What I read was his actual chat. It's the early Crusades were about suppressing early Christians' message about the oneness of God. That's what he claims was.
Idiot.
Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and read about the First Crusade, and okay, the First Crusade was the first of a series of religious wars or crusades initiated, supported, and at times directed by the Latin Church in the medieval period. The objective was the recovery of the Holy Land from Islamic rule. While Jerusalem had been under Muslim rule for hundreds of years, by the 11th century, the Seljuk takeover of the region threatened local Christian populations, pilgrimages from the west, and the Byzantine Empire itself. The earliest initiative for the First Crusade began in 1095 when Byzantine Emperor Alexios something or other requested military support from the Council of Piacenza in the empire's conflict with the Turks. This was followed later in the year by the Council of Clermont, during which Pope Urban II supported the Byzantine request for military assistance and also urged faithful Christians to undertake an armed pilgrimage to Jerusalem. And that was the initiation of it. But that went on for a couple hundred years, and you get into the stuff with all the Moors coming up and conquering Spain. You had, there was incredible amounts of invasions that were being done by the Muslims and coming up into Europe, and you claim that it was just about suppressing the belief in the oneness of God. Oh, too good.
The Quran also thinks that the Trinity has Mary in it. The Quran, like 5:116, refers to Mary as part of the Christian Trinity.
Does it really? I didn't know that.
Yep. Google it.
Well, boys, I'm getting tired now. It's now 1:30 my time. We're going for 3 hours and 20 minutes. That was a fun dumpster fire. You guys want to have last words, and we'll call tonight?
Yeah, thanks for the ride, Maddox. Appreciate it, man. Have yourself a good night. Take care, bro.
Appreciate you too. Soldier of God.
Good night, y'all.
Good
night,
talking,
man.
You have a great night.
Good stuff there, buddy. I put a cool lecture in the private chat. I don't know if you can put it in the main chat or whatever, about the history during the Crusades and what was going on. And there's a really good visual aid he gives that goes through the timeline and shows a map of the world and where the wars were and started by who regarding the Islamic invasions. And it's amazing, but it's very informative. But anyways, John, good to talk to you and see you, I guess you could say.
You as well. Yeah, I just put that in the side chat, y'all. Well, appreciate everybody coming in, sticking with us, and making it through the 3 hour and 20-minute dumpster fire that was this stream. I hope everybody who had a good time. I appreciate all the super chats, and I want to say thanks for folks for supporting the channel and helping me to reach people and grow. And hopefully we'll be able to do more of that in the near future. And as always, folks, as I say to everyone, as you contemplate the different aspects of your existence, the things that are necessary for you to exist, what are the more logical, plausible, and probable conclusions in relation to the necessities for your existence? I ask that you use your critical thinking skills, make sure that you are reaching sound conclusions, and ultimately are not being brainwashed into accepting talking points, status quo, conventional paradigms, and being afraid to question things that are being put forth. And very similar to the quote I started this thing off with, which I'm going to close it with. It must be considered that there is nothing more difficult to carry out, nor more doubtful of success, nor more dangerous to handle, than to initiate a new order of things, for the reformer has enemies in all those who profit by the old order, and only lukewarm defenders in all those who would profit by the new order. This lukewarmness arising partly for fear of their adversaries, who have the laws in their favor, and partly from the incredulity of men who do not truly believe in anything new until they have had actual experience of it. It's Machiavelli from The Prince, Chapter 6. But I think on a variety of levels, as I started this off with, that describes what's happening now, as well as different aspects of the stream tonight, the conversations, the back and forths, and ultimately where we're kind of leaving things now. But I'm done. Make sure you keep having a good on. Have a great next couple of days, and I hope that you will come back and join us again soon. Have a great night, everybody.